serious, what are some of the biggest mistakes people can make in their 20s? Don't waste time being self-conscious. Don't waste time on negative people/relationships/interpersonal dramas. Use this time for personal development. Get good at things you enjoy. Be friends with people who make you happy. Do interesting shit. Literally no one ever has looked back and been pleased that they spent 6 months embroiled in roommate drama. You're not going to, hopefully, be regaling the bar with how that beach Cheryl bleached your towels in 6 years. It doesn't fucking matter. No one has ever been super jazzed that they nitpicked their own appearance for 7 years and consequently couldn't enjoy themselves because they were pulling at their clothing. I'm not talking about self-improvement. I'm talking about being really unhappy with yourself for the sake of being really unhappy with yourself. Stop doing that. You're fine. If your relationship involves screaming, drunken screaming, the silent treatment, weird subterfuge, or general nastiness, and I could make an endless list of bullshit behavior, leave that relationship. You are going to outgrow friendships. Other people are going to outgrow your friendship. This is normal. It's not an indictment of you as a person. It can be painful. Handle it with grace. And always think before you react. Always be your own devil's advocate. Think about others. Think about how you sound when dealing with conflict. Being a stable person is partially an acquired skill. Learn it. Not being interesting. Really. It takes time to be interesting. It takes time to grow a personality and an identity that isn't based off the things you like, or worse, the things you hate, or some preconceived labels people say. Go out, live life, have an adventure. And yeah, that's a way to be interesting. But reading books, writing, painting, cultivating a knowledge base either very specific or very broad, those are also ways to be interesting. And what's so important about being interesting? Well, the obvious way is that it's a way to meet people and make them stay. And while you may not need people, it's still nice to have them. But I'd probably say even more important than that is that it gives you a sense of who you are and what you want to do, and thus ways to relate to people. Because you can't be interesting without interests and goals beyond just living to tomorrow and avoiding suffering, because life isn't just about avoiding suffering, or at least, we all should hope it isn't. And when tragedy inevitably comes, or you find yourself suddenly in a strange new place or alone, in the end, you'll find yourself interesting. Too interesting to give up on, too interesting to throw away. So do something unique. Dare to disagree. Explore an inclination, scratch an itch. Because in this cynical world, it's dangerous to just be a collection of likes and dislikes, easily moved and swayed, because you don't have a place you want to be. So be interesting. Staying at a job too long. If you're not making more money, or in line for promotion 30 months after you start, you'll likely be kept there for a while. Big salary changes these days pretty much only occur by job hopping, not contributing to their 401k/IRA. If your company matches maximum it out 100% on ROI is basically unheard of long term, so it's free money. Pouring money into depreciating assets, expensive vehicles, large rent payments when cheaper options are available, going to grad school just because you have no idea what you want to actually do. Have a purpose and goal. Know about a dozen people who went to law school just because and had their life delayed heavily due to it. Letting your health deteriorate. You can't eat or drink like you were a teen, and health problems can sneak up on you. Nip it in the bud, otherwise it will just get harder. Letting idealizations of someone blind your judgment, marrying someone without knowing them as well as you should, or overlooking red flags, not using BC or a condom in one night stands, or when with a partner you can't realistically see supporting and raising a kid with. Spend too much time trying to impress people on social media. Full disclosure, I'm still early in my 20s, but I've talked to a lot of older folks about this. I think people usually give one of two answers to this question. Either 1, spending too much time working is a huge mistake. Make sure you have tons of cool experiences before you run out of energy, or 2, spending all your money on transient experiences is a huge mistake. Make sure you save money, because those pictures of you at Burning Man aren't going to pay the bills in 10 years. In my experience, most people who recommend the first are those in a financially secure position who kind of regret not having more fun in their 20s. While those who recommend the second are having more trouble and regret not earning/saving more money. Obviously what you actually want to do depends on your personality and situation. I think it's important to remember that you don't have to go fully in one direction or another. You can do things with friends or go to festivals and still save some money as long as you keep an eye on your finances. Even small amounts of money here and there build up, and then you'll have some to tide you over for when you're older and want to spend less time working. Turning 30 in a couple of months. So here's the ones I've observed. Trying to settle down too quickly. This is the best time to travel, indulge in hobbies, and explore your life before you're settled down with kids and serious commitments. My fiance and I do not plan to have kids till we are in our mid-30s because we enjoy going on adventures together. Also, even if you're single or do not have a travel partner, that does not mean you should not explore as much as you can and live life to the fullest. Living beyond your means and not learning how to budget correctly. When you begin your career, you are finally making a decent income, but do not forget that you should have several months of rent saved up. That is a rainy day fund, and simply because you have money in the bank, that does not mean you should spend all of it. Not starting a retirement fund. This goes with my above point. Fortunately, I have a dad who is very knowledgeable when it comes to investing and helped me pick the right funds for my retirement account once I had my first job out of college and what percentage to contribute. But I know not everyone has that kind of resource available to them or even know they should start a retirement fund. Take the time to learn about bonds, mutual funds, 401k options, etc. to ensure you're on the right track, because in 50 years you don't want to still be working 40+ hours a week to keep your life afloat. I'm 62 and wish I'd been told the following. This is guy oriented, but the themes are not gender specific. Experiences are way more important than things. Do something fun. Chrome wheels and racing stripes aren't as much fun as you'd think. In fact, you want that because clever people design marketing to make you want that. And then you can't go try skydiving cause you need to make a car payment. Forget that. Point A. Nobody's really talking about you, leave alone thinking about you. Anyway, just be who you are. Point. That doesn't mean you're meant to be some weirdo outlandish. Most people are like most people because most people are like most people. Once you quit worrying about self-definition, will find you're like most people. Yeah, sure, you prefer this beer and that color shirt, but in the end you're one of us. They have a great body. The sex is great. Good for you. C. Experience. When you're 60, none of that will matter, and the spouse who was there for you during the good times and the bad, I mean really there, is worth more than all the oily born fantasies you've ever had. And don't get married in a hurry. Some women, some men, are good at putting you into that place. Then you come to, you're not having sex, and you got no money. Watch out for them. They're watching out for you. Point. Go see a dentist, twice a year at that. Do what they say. Point. The sunscreen thing is no joke. Point. Ditch poisonous people. Ditch them. Whatever world they're opening the doors toward, as long as you put up with their digs and bull busting, is a stupid world of false promises and shallow grades. Hey, listen, this is important. The words you use, especially in referring to yourself, are critical. And the words you point to other people are the same words that churn your own water. Be a positive force and develop relationships with people who are also a positive force. Point. Go ahead and plan on growing old. It's kinda nice. The service in restaurants is really much better, and, it turns out, the party does not go on forever. Take yourself seriously, but don't make yourself serious. Develop a hearty laugh. These are obviously just my opinions and derived from my experience, but if you want to be successful later in life, you must invest in your education or work experience and debt relief that got you there in your 20s. I truly believe if you invest in yourself in this decade, it will pay off for you far greater for the rest of your life. I think many, myself included, when they are young look at their 20s as the time of their life. It's a time where you may be out of higher education and your friends will be beginning jobs. There is a temptation to move to cities, go out as much as possible, and travel as much as possible. There is nothing wrong with any of these endeavors. In fact, each may ultimately result in accomplishing the aforementioned goals. I have noticed however that many of my acquaintances failed to do the hard thing during this decade, which also resulted in settling for average careers in order to party, travel, move to a city. I went to medical school at age 22. And while that was a result of effort I'd put in prior, it was an investment in a potential career that I knew would result in success. At this same time, I also took a scholarship from the US Navy that paid for my entire education. As a result, I spent from age 26 to 31 in the military after completing graduate school and earning my doctorate. During this time, I traveled certainly, but not necessarily with my friends. I got to party, but far less than people I grew up with. I moved to a city for medical school, but lived in the middle of nowhere for my military service. I spent a lot of this time alone. At 31, however, I was debt-free and a doctor. I never had a credit card bill. I've never owed a bank anything. My first and only debt is my mortgage. I have a career that, while I will never be a multimillionaire, I will always be very successful. Now I know my story doesn't translate exactly for everyone's dream. What does, however, is to invest in education for your dream job and pay off whatever debt you can to the best of your ability during your 20s, even if it means having a little less fun. You have the rest of your life to have fun, and can more easily do so with a solid educational and economic foundation. Hope that helps someone. Having a ton of existential anxiety about not being as far along in life as other people in their 20s, especially celebrities. Motherfucker, you're in your 20s. If you live in a fairly supportive country and aren't homeless, you've probably got decent prospects for a long life. You can calm the fact down. It isn't all gonna be figured out in your 20s. And if you live in a country with shit prospects and you're homeless, some existential anxiety is probably the least of your pressing concerns. You're going to do some shit that could be called mistakes in your 20s. It's inevitable. If you're super worried about the big ones, then try to avoid shit that can fuck your shit up for years or decades, such as massive financial debt, the big addictions, alcohol, smoking, drugs, unhealthy foods, reckless physical activity without training for risk management. For instance, stuff that can easily result in long-term injury that's difficult, if not impossible, to recover from. But honestly, there are people who have dealt with that type of shit and made it through to the other side. Unless you're dead, it isn't the end of your world. If you fuck up, shit gets faked, and you have to figure out how to muddle through. You keep muddling through, and you try to get something helpful out of the worst shit you have to deal with, and with a little luck, you'll be doing pretty well mentally, if nothing else. And for fact's sake, you aren't alone. This ain't the hero's journey. You're a part of the human race. We got this far by working together. Don't forget the power of that. Get organized, learn to budget, and schedule. Do it now, and it will be natural when it really matters. Find a hobby. There is nothing worse than realizing at 30 that you could have mastered any number of skills or abilities if only you started younger. Make all free time an investment in learning something, anything. Be yourself. I wish I knew then that as an adult, nobody worthwhile defines you by your clothes, haircut, or media interests. Obviously a general statement, but you get the idea. Don't marry your high school sweetheart. You will be amazed at how much you think you know yourself is actually what you were taught to think. You know almost nothing about yourself or your needs at 20. Don't make any permanent decisions before 28. Apply this tip to anything relevant. Rack up debt. Bad credit decisions now will literally make life difficult for decades. Any fun you borrow now will have to be paid threefold, just when you should be enjoying early adulthood. Be a dick. Most everything you need to know about being an adult is simple. Don't be a dick. Opinions that will follow you forever are being made now. Try to make sure those opinions are positive. Getting too serious about a relationship that damages your potential and your future. I'm not saying that people don't find their long-term significant other in their early 20s, because that certainly happens. However, I've seen and heard of many people who just had to stay with this certain person, but at the cost of their education, or at the cost of a great entry-level job, or at the cost of their passions. Don't sacrifice your future like this. I get where it comes from. When you're in your late teens and early 20s, it feels like every relationship is super important and has potential, and that no one as special will come along. I'm in my late 30s now, and I could kick myself for even thinking that way early in my life. I've met so many people as I've ventured into adulthood. Trust me, you will meet many people in your life if you engage with the world. There's no reason to settle too soon. Getting someone pregnant. Even if you think you are ready, wait. There is no rush. You have literally the rest of your life to have a kid. You take care of yourself first, so you can take care of them later. I can't tell you how many people I have seen have a kid before they were ready, and almost all of them thought they were. Young people don't really have a proper perspective on time. Everything happens so fast. They are together for a year and suddenly they are sure they are going to be together for eternity. They have a kid. Then a year later they break up. Now one of them is left raising the thing, and the other is making payments for the next 18 years. Both are miserable and the kid is worse for it. If they had just waited, they could have made sure they were secure beforehand. A baby is not a relationship band-aid. A baby is not a toy. A baby is not an investment or a milestone or a trophy. A baby is a human being, and if you bring it into the world without considering what kind of life you are going to be able to provide for it, and I mean, really think about it, then you are a piece of shit. There is nothing wrong with wanting children, but if you can't put them above yourself and wait to make sure you are stable and secure, then you aren't ready to have them, and you don't deserve the love they will give you. I would say 5 years is the standard. If you can be together happily for that long, then you are probably stable enough to raise a child together. If you are getting older, then the number drops a bit. Just please, if you are going to create a life, make sure it is the best life possible. Don't settle for giving them crap just because you are an impatient child, too selfish to see past what you wanted in the moment. Get married. Be 30 or older. Know who you are. Discover your potential. Move from city to city. Have adventures. Have children. See above. Don't ruin youth for yourself and then try to enjoy the later more difficult years. Not save for retirement. Contribute the maximum from the very first job you work and never ever touch the money. Don't ever take a dispersal. Just keep on pouring money in that account. It's the difference between retiring at 45 and retiring at 65. Get tied down. Don't refuse to leave your hometown because you teach a class at the Y or because so and so needs you. Don't let clingy, whiny, dependent people make you feel too guilty to move to a faraway place. Own things. If I were 20 again, oh my god, how I wish I would own a blanket, a bedsheet, a cot, a pillow, my clothes, my PC, my phone, and toiletries. That's it. Pack it all up in the backseat of my car and change cities on a whim. And I would change cities tomorrow and again the next year. Every year a different city, whether I was waiting tables or working for a Fortune 500 company. Having kids before you and your partner are truly ready. Around 18 months into our relationship, my so and I found out that we were expecting. We were inseparable at the time and decided to have our daughter despite our relationship being fairly new. We had talked about getting married and having children eventually, but my so had come out of an 8-year marriage that began after high school, so we weren't trying to rush tying the knot. From my perspective, lacking a ring or vows didn't change anything. Deciding to have a child was just as firm of a commitment to my partner as marriage. My naivety at the time allowed me to believe that my partner was just as committed. Fast forward 4 years and my partner has decided that they are no longer romantically in love and no longer want to be in our relationship. I'm sure that the faults lie more in our relationship and incompatibility, but young children can add a tremendous challenge to relationships that aren't truly prepared. Don't end up crying yourself to sleep over the realization that you have to explain to a faultless 4-year-old child why they won't get to see both parents after school every day. Edit. Words. One of the biggest mistakes a person makes in their 20s is not recognizing the value of time in regards to wealth. By the time this lesson is fully appreciated, a person is usually in their 30s or 40s or even later. What to do? Go to Zillow. Look up the cheapest houses in your area. Keep visiting and visualizing yourself in one of the cheaper houses. Research the area. Research the property values. Go look at it. Make it a goal inside of a year or two to buy one of those houses instead of paying rent. When I say goal, I mean attack it like a faking pit bull. Don't get married. Don't buy a new car. Buy a faking house and eliminate your end point. By the time you're middle-aged, you will have built some serious wealth instead of paying someone else's mortgage for decades. No matter how bad things get, you'll have a roof over your head. It's so liberating to the rest of your life when you aren't a slave to your rent. I'm 29, so I will give you my mistakes and close friends' mistakes as they are all fresh in my mind. Also, these are not in order. Letting yourself get into debt. Car loans and student loans are fine, but do not carry a faking balance on a credit card until you are in your late 20s, early 30s. No matter how stable or mature you are, you're not. Never stop going to the dentist. Your body can bounce back a bit and be fixed, but teeth are no faking joke. If you owe money to something and can't pay it, negotiate what you can pay. I made the mistake of not paying anything and closing my eyes and pretending it wasn't there for years, and I'm now undoing the damage. I could have just been paying $8 a month to not fuck myself. Having kids this early, I know it's hard for women as you get older, and some people genuinely want kids at this age, but at least wait till your mid to late 20s if you can. The problem I've seen is the partner you have your kid with is probably not long term. I would say there's like a 30% chance you stay with them long term, if even that. But the biggest problem I've seen with having kids young is it snuffs out your potential. Whether you want to believe it or not, you are still growing as a person until your 30s, and when you have a kid you have to direct all that energy and focus to them, and rightfully so. But it's not easy to build a career and work on yourself when there's something that takes literally all of your attention. Another big one is cutting out bad friends/toxic people. They will literally drag you down. Try to surround yourself with people who are more like you and have the same mindset. I've learned when you surround yourself with successful, mature people that you all seem to propel each other upwards. A friend of mine was looking for a new job and they offered her a huge pay cut from what she's making now, and I told her not to accept it, but negotiate, and she thought she would give them a dollar figure that would be acceptable to her. It was still a huge pay cut. I told her not to tell them any dollar amount because it was just limit her. So she came back to them saying their offer needed to be more competitive, and bam, she's making more money now. Because we were friends and I was one of her successful, helpful friends, I just made her more money. We tend to look out for and encourage each other when we are friends with motivated, successful people, or even just positive people. Don't get wrapped up in drama, especially social media shit. You can have your opinions and feelings, but don't pour them out for the world to see. Let your close friends and family know how you feel, but keep that shit contained. It will only end badly when you air your dirty laundry on social media. Take the time to understand personal finance, read articles and subscribe to subreddits about personal finance and things that interest you as well, but things that are helpful I find are supremely important. Personal finance has been a godsend to me, and I guess most importantly, don't settle for less. It only breeds anger and resentment. Go for what you want and work toward it, and if you achieve a goal, set the bar higher or set another goal. Don't lose steam. I recently got myself in a position I thought would take me into my 40s to get. I'm about 10ish years or more ahead, so I'm setting the bar higher instead of coasting. I don't know, I babbled, and doubt anyone will read it. Not taking your credit seriously. I strongly suggest starting with a secure credit card through a bank. It will help build good payment habits and limit your spending. Credit is not free money. If you want a credit card, fully understand that it means anything you buy on it will be at least 20% more expensive. Set up auto pay on your bills for the day of the week you get paid. You may not have a high income right now, but it's so much harder to fix poor credit later than to manage it now. Credit will decide everything for you in your adult life. Want a car? Credit. Want to rent a place? Credit. Want to buy a home? Credit. Pay everything on time, and don't start store credit cards just for new clothes. Save your money for more than one night out with friends. You could blow $300 easily on a weekend going out to dinner, shopping, and drinks, or you could buy a plane ticket and gain some perspective of the world. Finish school. Whatever it is, just finish. If you don't know what you want to do, save some money and go to community college and try a few classes. Technical schools people knock on plumbers, electricians and the like. But every building you see has plumbing and electricity and have to pay someone to install and maintain it. They make dollar sign dollar sign dollar sign. Usually the education is 1 to 2 years and you're licensed and ready to work. It may not be what you will do the rest of your life, but it's a skill you can bank on. Broaden your friend circle. Volunteer. Acknowledge someone in a less fortunate position. Engage in the world around you. Don't be shitty. Moving out of your parents' house when you have the option to stay a while and build up savings. There are obviously situations where this doesn't apply. Cross-country jobs, shitty parents, financially unstable parents. But if you can live in your childhood bedroom for a year after college and build up savings, it is invaluable. My husband and I both lived with our parents for 2 years after college, and the down payment for our condo was 100% comprised of money we saved during that time, and not during the 3 years in between where we paid rent in an expensive city. Paying exorbitant rent for a super nice apartment that you don't need. You'll have nothing to show for it at the end of the decade when you decide it would be nice to settle down and have a house. Not using condoms. When you're 30 and having precancerous cells scraped off your cervix or struggling to get pregnant because of an STI you had years ago, it will not be worth it. God forbid you get pregnant and the consequences are even bigger. Drinking too much and not exercising. Both are so bad for your health. Health problems really start to catch up with you in your late 20s, and when you look back at how you mistreated your body, you will be sad. Not taking advantage of career opportunities. If you have an opportunity to make more money, or take on more responsibility, or get a higher profile job, jump at it. You make huge strides in your 20s, and once you are in your 30s and 40s, and don't have that momentum, colleagues start to judge you, just based on how far you didn't get in your 20s. Following passions that are not practical. If you think you'd like to do something with your life, look into how many jobs are available in that field, and how much money you can make doing that. Decide whether you would be content with your passion being a hobby, or if it has to be your main source of income. I've seen quite a handful of very talented, passionate people disappointed by following their passion in their career, whether their passion is non-profit work, book publishing, horticulture, outdoor recreation, music, ceramics, etc. It's difficult to find good jobs and make a comfortable living in jobs that lots of people find interesting, because so many people want those jobs and are willing to work for peanuts just to do what they love. Meanwhile, if you really love one of the things I listed above, you can do it during your spare time with all the money you make from your high-paying job in a field that's only moderately interesting to you. Not understanding that you will change as you get older. You may feel now that you will never want children, want to live in a house, want to get married, care about money, want to live near your family. Some of these feelings may stay constant as you get older, but I can pretty much guarantee that not all of them will. And if you are a person who wants all those things already in your early 20s, I can pretty much guarantee that at some point you will start to feel ambivalent about some of those things. I would strongly recommend not making decisions that close off your options in any of these areas. I know people who got divorced in their 20s, and I know people who said they couldn't imagine getting married who are now happily planning their wedding. I know people who pursued passion careers who are now aggressively searching for jobs that pay better, or going back to school to start a different career. I know people who said they would never buy property who are now bemoaning the steep cost of a down payment. I know people who talked to me about raising our kids together who now plan not to have children, and I know people who said they'd have one child who are now buying minivans. That's a very good question. I have lived with no regrets in my life, because I think the mistakes have taught me well in the long run. I would tell you 2 things, one that I did right and it helped me, and one mistake. The thing that I did right was to read books. I read a lot, and it has helped me so much in my life. I also feel that as I have read for the last 15 to 20 years, I'm 34, I'm coming to a point where the collective knowledge is really kicking in. It has helped me a lot during job interviews too, because I can articulate myself really well. So, if you are not reading in your 20s, then I would mark that as a mistake. The mistake that I made in my 20s was not to stick to my goals for longer than a month or 2. I always kept changing my goals, hopping from one goal to another. I still think I was better than someone with no goals, but motivated people usually are so energetic that they have a tendency to get excited with new things every day. I would suggest sticking to goals for a longer duration. It would be really fruitful for you when you reach your 30s. Of course, do not rigidly stick to things that you find useless, but keep working on 1 or 2 basic goals apart from office work. This would help you a lot. If I had stuck to 1 or 2 goals, I would have moved mountains in 10 years. That is my only regret in life. I try to stick to some basic goals now. Shitty financial choices, specifically, taking out debt for stuff you can't afford such as cars, clothes, holidays, etc. All these nice things can be yours after you earned enough money. Defaulting on even a small loan can seriously fuck your future credit. Don't do it. Do you rent, but intend to buy a house later? Congratulations, you're already paying for the mortgage on your rented place for the landlord and getting no closer to that beautiful house you picture yourself owning in your 40s. Get saving for a deposit. Buying a car first. It's a lot easier to save up for the deposit on a property if you don't have car payments, gas, and maintenance. Cars don't attract women, they attract other dudes who like cars. In your late 20s and 30s, women won't be impressed with that heavily depreciated car. Owning an apartment or house, however, is the hallmark of someone with their financial sheet together. No pension contributions. Don't want to have to work in your 70s just to keep a roof over your head, pay medical bills. Want to retire one day? You're going to need money to contribute towards your future while you can. Don't save with a bank that will gamble your retirement money. Save with an institution with a track record of careful, diversified investing. Good luck, ya lucky fakers. A guy at 30. Don't get a credit card. Don't get a second credit card because you are close to maximuming out your first one. Don't get a loan to cover your credit cards. Don't get store cards. Live within your means. Don't drink excessively. Don't waste time on people who don't want to spend time with you. Don't waste time on people who feel sorry for you. Don't live your life through social media. Live your life and share a part of it with social media. Don't send nudes. Ever. Don't buy a brand new car. Get an old car that works and make heaps of memories in that car and save your money for a home. Save your money. Buy a home. Work on your health. Don't eat junk food. Learn to exercise on your own. Learn to work on your own. Learn to be self-sufficient. Learn to take criticism. Don't get angry. Don't react to every comment. Don't reply to everything you hear like you are on social media. You are smart. Don't tell everyone about it. Don't brag. Learn to be nice to others. Learn how to do gardening. It's an amazing way to de-stress. Learn how to fix things. You will save yourself a lot of time and effort in the future. Learn how to sew. You can save yourself money instead of buying new clothes. Before you buy anything, go for a 5-minute walk. Distractions are how we waste our time and money. And learn to plan your day. Learn a new skill every month. It does not have to be a big one, just something you can do in a short period of time. Like how to fold your clothes efficiently. Learn how to do your washing. Learn how to iron your clothes. Seriously, it stands out in an office. Don't forget to call your family and friends. Don't forget to say please and thank you. Don't let the world tell you how to live your life. Live your life in the way that makes you happy, in the way that in 5, 10, 20 years time, when you look back, there are no regrets. Don't date a coworker. Don't burn your bridges. If you don't like a job, think about why you don't like a job. If you want to leave, think about how you will survive without that income. Don't rely on government support. It sucks. Spend time looking into your local community. There is so much support, you would be amazed. Spend time volunteering. Spend time mentoring someone else. Don't waste your time in front of a screen. Don't follow all the stars in the world. Spend time outside. Spend time with friends. And lastly, don't stress so much. You can't stop time. You can only control how you use it. Use it wisely. I'm 58 years old now. Advice I wish I would have listened to. Do not marry someone you do not know. LHM. I wish I'd have listened. Also, save money out of every possible paycheck you can. Learn a job skill. that you can get good, no, really good at, and even if you don't like it, you'll always have a fallback option. And I mean a trade skill. I actually did follow this advice. I became a pipe welder, X-ray certified. At my age, my eyesight is not the greatest, but I'm still welding, and my boss considers me a valuable asset to the company. I'm always there, I'm always on time, and I'm willing to do whatever he needs me to do, so long as it's not illegal or immoral. Yes, another bit of advice. Learn morals. Don't cheat, lie or steal. Be honest. Don't be a sucker. Don't hang out with losers. Bad associations spoil useful habits. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Best advice I've ever received. Read God's word, the Bible, daily. My oldest brother once sent me this. Principles of adult behavior: be patient. No matter what. Don't badmouth. Assign responsibility, not blame. Say nothing of another you wouldn't say to him. Never assume the motives of others are, to them, less noble than yours are to you. Expand your sense of the possible. Don't trouble yourself with matters you truly cannot change. Expect no more of anyone than you can deliver yourself. Tolerate ambiguity. Laugh at yourself frequently. Concern yourself with what is right rather than who is right. Never forget that, no matter how certain, you might be wrong. Give up blood sports. Remember that your life belongs to others as well. Don't risk it frivolously. Never lie to anyone for any reason. Lies of omission are sometimes exempt. Learn the needs of those around you and respect them. Avoid the pursuit of happiness. Seek to define your mission and pursue that. Reduce your use of the first personal pronoun. Praise at least as often as you disparage. Admit your errors freely and soon. Become less suspicious of joy. Understand humility. Remember that love forgives everything. Foster dignity. Live memorably. Love yourself. Endure. John Perry Barlow, 2013. Biggest mistake: not listening to the elders. Older people have a wealth of knowledge and are absolutely willing to share it, whether you ask or not. I think a lot of young people tend to think that they know a lot more than they do. Believe me, you don't know even a percentage of what you will learn as you grow out of your 20s. Take heed to the advice of the older generations, filter it, and keep it in mind as you progress. You can collect a lot of jewels from people who are more experienced in life. Just like with anything, not every single piece of information is going to apply to your life at the time. However, you can give yourself a real advantage by tucking that information under your cap for later on down the line. Also, you can help others by using the knowledge that you've received from others. Each one, teach one, as they say. That's my advice. I'm in the last year of my 20s, and I have received invaluable information from the old heads that have saved me a lot of time and wasted effort in my life and career. Education is a lifelong continual process. I have also seen my peers make foolish avoidable mistakes because they thought they knew everything and were above reproach. No one is too good or too wise to take a lesson from another big mistake: not taking the time to responsibly enjoy your youth. Life hits you hard when you are the only one responsible for yourself. It is especially hard when you become responsible for other people. There's not really a wrong time to have children. You'll be ready when you have to be. However, make sure your ducks are in a row and that you're married or settled in with the right person. The rest is just work. Thank you for posing this question. It's a really good one. Putting up with being unhappy for long stretches of time or settling. I'm not saying you should never stick to anything, but I'm saying that you only get to be 25 for 1 year. Ever. You only get to be 20 something, financially independent, and with disposable income, for most people, for like a handful of years. I know people who burned up their 20s living places they didn't really like, working jobs they didn't really like, dating or even marrying people despite obvious red flags, and then they hit their 30s or 40s and realize, yeah, you're never too old to move, switch careers, go back to school, find love again, etc. But you are, by definition, on your 30th birthday, too old to be 20 something again. Once that ship has sailed, it's gone forever seen. So many friends put off enjoying their 20s until they weren't in their 20s anymore, spend their best years, which they can never get back, being unhappy, or even just basically okay, but wanting for more. You can see this expression on their faces, hear it in their voice, when they talk about the life they've led, and it sounds like they're trying to convince themselves they're happy, because they know there's no going back. It's sad as hell. Point like I say, I'm not saying you need to cut and run the moment you're unhappy with your situation, and I'm not saying you need to go climb Everest or see Paris before you're 24. But I'm saying that, if you just don't give up, if you thrash around a bit, do some work, spend just a few hours investigating possibilities, looking for resources, etc., there's probably a path to a happier life that is within your comfort zone. Most people, though, it seems like, just kinda give up. They tell themselves they're saving up, or waiting for the right opportunity or something, but they're not really trying, like expending effort, to get to a better place, and so they never will. They just tell themselves otherwise, so they can get to sleep at night. Don't do that to yourself, is all. Don't give up. Don't be apathetic to an unsatisfactory life when you're in your 20s, or you'll be living that same shit for decades. Stress about hitting certain milestones in life, dictated by popular media. Graduated by 23, married by 25, retired by 32, circling the world in a 100-foot yacht for the rest of your life. I don't know shit about yachts. Not everyone has the same path in life, and life happens. My therapist said you're going to be 40 anyway, might as well be working on what you want to be. When a friend of mine dropped out of pharmacy school cause she'd be 40 when she finally got to practice. A lot of nurses I've talked to went to nursing school in their 30s and were grateful for it. They already had families and small children, but you do what you have to whenever you get the opportunity to, and sometimes now is better than waiting until you're ready. My father got his master's in his 60s after he retired the first time. Now he's working on his PhD in his 70s. Why? Cause why not? He loves learning and education. He loves to work. Guy I worked with was in his 60s, retired from the oil fields, and went back to become a tech at a mental hospital, cause that's what he wanted to do. He said his paychecks were as much as he paid in taxes a month, but he's happy. I grew up in Illinois, and I moved to Florida for work after graduating from college. I found a great circle of friends and a fantastic job there. I still visited home frequently. My dad got sick during my time in Florida, but he got better. Still, being an only child, I felt guilty being far away and not being able to help my parents out as they aged. After 5 years in Florida, I decided to move back to Illinois. Now instead of a 2-hour plane ride away, I'm a 45-minute car ride away. I had to basically start all over at the age of 28. Didn't have any friends up here anymore, and finding a job proved to be challenging. 7 years on, I've got a good job, but only recently have I been able to equal my pay in Florida, and that money doesn't go as far up here as down there. I still have few friends. I feel like my duties as an only son are easier to fulfill from my current location, but I set myself back quite a bit. Had I stayed in Florida, I would likely have been married, maybe with kids. There's a lot of hypotheticals here, so I suppose I'll get to the point. The point is to live your life on your terms. Be there for family when you can, but you also need to look out for your own needs, be it a job, social life, or general happiness. Thinking that money will come in as easily as it leaves. There are many reasons why you will find yourself with an unexpected expense you weren't anticipating on needing to pay, not even in an emergency. My tire just blew out kind of way, but my friends are getting married, and I have to buy them a gift. I put on a little weight since my last job interview, and need to buy a new outfit for this one. My niece is asking me to donate to her school fundraiser kind of way. And yet there are fairly few instances where you'll come into money that you weren't expecting. There's this unspoken belief that a lot of people have, especially younger people, that there's a certain type of karmic balance to the universe. And I think that plays into this mindset that if you have these unexpected expenses, they'll surely be balanced by some occasional unexpected windfalls. But it never works that way. Those little expenses aren't going to break the bank. but there are a lot more of them than you'd think, and they add up. With all these good comments on not coasting and being proactive with your trajectory, I also see a lack in exposing the realities of failure. You will fail. Everyone fails. It will be a terrible feeling of self-doubt and exhaustion. Do not listen to your what ifs. It would not have been better if you didn't try. Taking a risk to discover the path taken only tells you that did not work out at that time with the resources you had. As painful as that is, it is much better than living in wonder or regret. If you took the other route, the regret/wonder would still be there as you fantasize about the road behind you. Failure and hard work is the constant, no matter what you perceive from other people's story or social media thread. With that said, be wise through it all to ensure you're not blindly running on a treadmill thinking you're persevering up a steep hill to your goal, unless your goal is to be in better shape and you maximumed out the inclined setting. Go get them. Seek good mentors outside your circle who are experienced in your field of focus. Trust them, question them, teach them, learn. This one is a bit abstract, but not learning to be comfortable/happy by yourself and not developing individual goals, interests and hobbies in your 20s. It seems as if this massive group of people will always be around, just hanging out and chilling on a couch or drinking at the bar on random nights as you approach and enter your 30s. You'll notice a rapid decrease in the number of friends who are around as they start to settle into careers and have children. Feeling content and comfortable when by yourself becomes increasingly important. Especially if you find yourself single in your late 20s/early 30s or later. You'll have a lot of time to fill, and at this age, little use for wallowing or loneliness. You need some hobbies and interests that you pursue entirely for yourself. Develop personal interests and goals. It will make you stronger, more interesting, and ultimately more successful. Respect yourself and learn to stay positive. It is a skill that takes practice, like any other skill. Sinking a significant amount of money into an expensive wedding. I have a friend who got married, and it took them almost 6 years to pay off the wedding, and by that time they had already filed for divorce, and it was a nasty divorce. Thankfully no children were involved in that mess, but the whole thing just seemed ridiculous. They had a much bigger wedding than could ever be necessary, and I really think that the money issues that trying to pay off that wedding caused in their marriage is the reason it failed so quickly. And I think that happens to a lot of people. I read somewhere that money issues are one of the #1 causes of divorce, and it seems ridiculous to me that many people in their 20s get married and start off their new life with someone drowning in wedding debt. For me, the biggest mistake I made in my 20s was allowing my job to stress me out to the point that I got physically sick and I had no personal life. I found a new job before the old one destroyed me. I needed a crazy job like that fresh out of school to get a lot of experience in a hurry, but there's a reason a lot of the people out there drop dead before 50, and I didn't want to be one of them. Subconsciously assuming that your life is a script that will play out and that you are in the audience watching it rather than the actor on the screen doing it. If you don't do something, there will be no movie. Don't wait, act. Make something of your life, with emphasis on the word make. If you don't know what to do and feel like it would just be a random waste to pick something and start doing it, you are wrong. Do something even if you know it is not the thing. Movement causes you to bump into things, and that's how you know whether you like them, want them, and are good at them. It causes you to bump into people you would not have met and make connections you would not have made. And it causes you to move to a different place, figuratively. When you move to a different place, you get a different perspective. So what you want is movement. If you don't know which way to go, just pick one. Any direction is better than no direction. You can always change directions, but do something. Fix your eyes at a point on the horizon and start moving actively towards it. Don't stand still staring 360 at the horizon around you and wondering which direction is the right way to go, imagining that the answer will come to you. If you just think about it long enough, you will figure it out on the way. You'll figure it out so much faster if you move. Care about what everyone else is doing and using it as a benchmark. I got married at 24 to someone I'd been in love with for 10. None of my friends were married. Not too long before my friends started to think about engagement to people they generally weren't happy with, I noticed a shifting pattern of a lot of people wanting to be in a committed relationship with people that weren't good for them because they felt that it was that time. From people struggling with some hardcore addiction to people with high-end jobs in fancy land, I've been close with people in the latter half of my 20s who were on a different track. I'm just fortunate my husband caught me before I absorbed myself in a 50+ hour a week job that would kill me at the time as I was very sick. And now I'm pregnant. Life has no trajectory point, and it's really okay to grow apart. Don't hold on to a friendship, especially if your maid of honor stole a card containing money and burnt the card. Not sure if it was mentioned already, but hanging out with unmotivated people and bad influences. Know a friend from high school that got in with the wrong crowd. He fell through with a lot of our friends in high school and started hanging out with people experimenting with coke. Nothing against drugs, but the people he chose to spend his time with didn't give any shits about him, and they used each other. In high school he had a lot of friends that would have supported him through his depression and his path down destruction with cocaine. One night he got so high, broke and entered an ex-girlfriend's home and raped her. He concealed his identity with a shirt and threatened her with a knife. He was in jail for 4 years and was just released last year. He's on his best behavior now, working and taking care of his kid, but imagine being locked up in your early 20s. I hope he makes it and shoots straight from now on. Kitty, if you're reading this, don't forget you have true friends who won't ever fuck you over. Not finishing school, community college or undergraduate or even any kind of trade, either tech program, because you have an opportunity to work. A lot of people from my high school did this. They started school, had the opportunity to work full-time somewhere making $10-12 an hour, and decided to drop out to work. They, mostly, all had the excuse of, oh, I'll make some money, and then come back and finish. It's been 10 years and none of them went back. Unless you desperately need the money and will be homeless without it, finish school. Side story, a friend of mine dropped out to pursue a job where she made $12/HR. All throughout my time in undergrad she bragged about how she had all this money, she lived with her parents, and paid no bills BTW, and made fun of me for being a broke undergrad student. After graduation, I got an entry-level position answering phones for $15/HR. My friend had 3+ years of experience and had been promoted to the second highest position in her department. There was only one position above hers and the person in that position had held that title for 15+ years. There were no more opportunities for her to advance. She was making close to $13 an hour. Fast forward to now, it's been nearly 6 years since I had gotten that entry-level position and have been able to secure better employment. My friend is still at that same job and she can't afford to live by herself without roommates, so she has to live with her parents. Mistaking love for fish love. An older man approaches a younger man and says, "Young man, why are you eating that fish?" The young man says, "Because I love fish." He says, "Oh, you love fish. That's why you took it out of the water and killed it and boiled it." He says, "Don't tell me you love fish. You love yourself, and because the fish tastes good to you, therefore, you took it out of the water and killed it and boiled it. So much of what is love is fish love." Young couple falls in love. Young man and a young woman fall in love. What does that mean? That means that he saw in this woman someone who he felt could provide him with all of his physical and emotional needs, and she felt in this man somebody she feels that she can write. That was love, but each one is looking out for their own needs. It's not love for the other. The other person becomes a vehicle for my gratification. When you get your first adult job you are going to want to spend too much on a car. Don't do this. Source, me, my friends. If you need a vehicle, go get a certified used Corolla. It will last you forever and will be cheap maintenance. Get a gym membership. Go to the gym 3 to 5 times a week and develop good eating habits. Lots of good subreddits for this. Don't spend a lot on clothes, but if you need to, get decent work clothes. Gap can cover most of your basics and r/Malafacian Advis can assist with suggestions. I assume that there is a female equivalent. Start saving. Set up an IRA and contribute regularly. Also, set up a savings account that automatically transfers money from your savings account every 2 weeks. Pay periods. Be happy. Love yourself and remove the people from your life that are cancerous. Find a hobby or something you are passionate about. Do things that put you out of your comfort zone. This really will help you grow as a person. Don't compare yourself with others. They don't know what they are doing either. They may seem more successful, rich, or happy, but they could be secretly miserable, or are massively in debt to make others think that they are doing better than they are. Only person to compare yourself to is your previous self. Be a human with a typical nervous system hormone levels for a 20-something with no prior training, including practice at managing the impulses that you experience. Seriously, all the advice here is great, but teenagers and early 20-somethings are pure idiots. In the daytime, when there's no booze, no peers, and no romantic interests around, sure, all this advice seems sensible and pretty easy to put into practice. But man, when you're tired or bust, or out with friends, or chasing some tail, forget it. Just this once becomes your go-to justification, and suddenly you use your credit card just this once until it's maximumed out. You realize that 6 months of emergency fund can be rebuilt because hey, you built it once, right? Don't come to this thread looking for quick fixes. Every piece of good advice in here requires dedication, commitment, self-denial, sacrifice, delayed gratification, etc. And none of those come from a stern talking to yourself in the mirror. They mostly come from your parents, mentors, and peers training you to do them, and from practicing doing them while you still have a modicum of control over yourself. Assume everyone that's selling something to you is lying. No, really. It's all lies. TV ads, online reviews, customer reviews, news stories about a new product, your good buddy talking about it on Facebook. It's all lies trying to trick you out of your money. I definitely agree with the exercise thing. Don't go overboard, but make sure you develop good eating habits. The moment you get your own credit card, don't go nuts with it. I didn't just get one, but 3, and I tried doing the balance transfer thing too. Is good enough. 1 for backup, not investing into an IRA right away, not learning the basics of taking care of yourself. Do yourself a huge favor, and if your parents raised you well, ask them how. There's a lot of little things that they've already went through which you should seriously be asking before you leave the house. Take notes. Not thanking your parents if they raised you well. Seriously, do this the moment you get your own place and a job. They don't get enough credit here. Not making sure your parents are in a good place when you're ready to leave. Check up on them because they may not have their own lives lined up. Also, make sure you can get them to sign a will if they haven't already. Not traveling while you have the time, money, energy, and low risk. Traveling is one of those things that add up in cost. It'll be harder and harder to make those trips around the world, since you should be throwing more money into your bank account until you've got your major things settled away. For instance, car, house. Not working abroad, it's much harder to move once you've developed a rhythm. I highly suggest working abroad to give you a better perspective of things. It helped me a great deal since it made me more culturally sensitive. Not marrying your sweetheart. If you're blessed with good looks and great endowments, you probably can ignore me, but I just think it gets harder and harder to meet the one. As you get older, you will find that your habits and ways of thinking become less malleable, and you might grow cynical, which can affect relationships. If family is a goal, do it earlier. That way you can see your kids grow up and hopefully your other family members can meet them too. Not settling into good routines. Bad habits get worse as you get older. Nip them in the rear right now before it gets too easy to ignore them. Make and cultivate those lasting friendships. Kick those fair weather friends to the curb early. I wasted so much time and energy trying to stay close with my HS friends when my world was expanding with work and university. I thought that it would be noble for me to keep my old friends for the sake of comfort, but I started seeing better people with more in common with me as I started growing up. They just couldn't keep up, or they resented me for flourishing when they wanted to stay put. I realized that just because they saw you every day of your teenage years doesn't mean they actually knew you. The truth is, you probably didn't know you. So how could they? And to easily seg into the next item, actively continue finding you. Bank on experiences now. Go out and find your true passions while you have the energy and wherewithal to journey as far and as deep as you can. I went to places that played live rock music when I usually only listened to rap and R&B. I loved the atmosphere and fell in love with the tragically hip. I hung out at art galleries and rugby games. I loved the atmosphere. I didn't actually work out regularly until my 20s because I didn't have interest in moving. But I wanted to be in shape, so I tried everything. Running, aerobics classes, yoga, billets, Zumba, and even rock climbing. I found that I actually liked exercise, but with music, and not with a trainer. The gist is experiences will define you as a person, and who you really are. I decided to move to Korea at 28, and it was the best decision I've ever made. It changed me as a person. Be good to yourself. Like I said before, I wasn't very physically active in my early years. I've always been chubby and short, but I learned too late in my 20s that I wasn't doing my health any favors. This has also bled into my mentality of my 20s as a nice queen who secretly believed that I wasn't shit under anyone's shoes. I look back and should have been kinder to myself because I was being noticed by the men around me. I just was too afraid to let my guard down. I regret not taking those chances. I also regret not wearing more makeup and wearing what I really wanted to wear. Don't be so hard on yourself. You have more to offer than people can see upon first impression. Get your money right. If you think school is your way to make it into your dream career, go get that degree or diploma. If you think you need practical knowledge in your field, go work. Follow your passion and make it make you money. Strategize on how. Plan your future, but make sure that it's something you love. Money can always be made, but never easily earned, unless you love your job. And save a little at first. It will teach you how to save more later. Have fun. You want to look back on your 20s with more fondness than regret. Read more, travel more, and get the most out of life. I know too many people that say that they should have done more traveling, more dating, more discovering in their 20s. Don't be one of us. From my experience, it's putting your priorities straight, so you will never have to say I didn't try hard enough, or I wish I did that. Everything else is based on that point. My dad used to say he wished he had more guts to leave being a math teacher with a passion for computers and actually become a full-fledged developer. That was in the 60s and 70s, where you could write VisiCalc in your basement or MS-DOS with a few colleagues. I grew up with that mentality. As Yoda said, don't try, do. Going out drinking beers, seeing a few shows, never really taking much drugs, never paid for any, worked my ass on creating softwares, started a company, tried things, failed horrendously a few times, got burned badly a few times, went back to mommy once, learned the hard way to have colleagues that complete me, not trying to be a lone ranger. In other words, you have all the time in the world, you can do anything. You can take whatever money sits in your piggy bank and take a bus to New York City and go see the next Broadway show right now if you wish. Having no time is a fallacy of the mind. This not being a priority is the main point here. Set your priorities straight. If you need to see your friends and drink beer and relax and sleep, so be it. You chose that. If you decide you want to be a farmer, go farm. If you want to be a doctor, study and become the best you can be. Letting partying and socializing become detrimental to potential. Whether you are in college, trade school, the military, or working at a steady job already, there's lots of pressure for 20-somethings to waste their time drinking heavily, staying up late, and generally wasting time faking around. Because YOLO and this is the best time of your life. I did too much of that in college. I still finished with better than average grades and love my job today, but I know that I could be so much further if I hadn't faked off so much. If I met my past self, I would tell him to surround himself with different people. You do what the people around you do, and more so at that age. So, surround yourself with people that are doing things and going places, and then you will be more likely to go places as well. You don't have to abandon your friends. Pull them up as you climb if they need help, instead of you both staying at the same level. 10 life lessons to live by. Nobody owes you anything. Whatever you want is yours to get. Asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. Far from it. It means you're committed to getting it done. Nobody cares if you're wrong. Taking accountability, learning from it, and moving forward is what makes a great team member and makes great character. Getting older isn't a bad thing, it's a gift. Not everyone gets the chance to grow old. Think about that for a second. Two halves don't make a whole. Two wholes make a whole. Whether you're looking for a significant other, a business partner, or a friend, you both need to be solid and whole in who you are before you can build something together. Nobody finds their passion. You practice, you improve, and you realize how passionate you are about what you're doing. Time is of the essence. There's not enough time. There's plenty of time. Both wrong. Enjoy the journey. But also, get there. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Probably the best thing I've ever heard. Period. You're going to fail. And it's going to hurt. And that's okay. It's all part of the process. Tiny steps will take you much further than infrequent home runs. As someone still in my 20s navigating it all, worry less about trying to make people like you. That doesn't mean no be a douchebag. I don't care if anyone likes me or any of that shit. But if someone falls out of being friends with you, either because you've both changed and are no longer friendship compatible or external factors like something someone else told them, etc., do not lose sleep over it. It sucks losing friends, especially close ones, but stressing over it all and trying to force a friendship seldom works. Try reaching out if you haven't. Apologize sincerely and without trying to shift blame or explain in a way that negates your role in the situation if it's warranted. But don't continuously try to force a connection or stress over their social medias etc. If they don't seem to reciprocate. You'll be very upset then, and upset for a while, maybe for a long time. But one of the best ways to start feeling better is to accept the situation's out of your control and move on with your life for the time being. Living like you are in your 30s. Basically, there is going to be a shit time in your life. You will be poor, have student loans, live in a crap apartment, drive a crap car, have crap furniture etc. This is just part of starting out in life. You haven't been promoted, paid off loans, found your dream job / whatever yet. And that is okay. There will be people you know that seem like they are living better than you. They will drive better cars, have all the high-end electronics, go on vacations etc. It could be that they make a lot more money, but most likely they are just deep in credit card debt. I'm sure tons of people in this thread will tell you the same thing and list stories about how they gathered huge sums of credit card debt. I've been there as well. I promise you that no interest, same as cash promotion on a new TV, is just a giant temptation you don't need that will fuck you up 5 years from now. Don't do it. Not making a career path for yourself. You need to start retirement now. If you just work jobs through your 20s with no goal in sight, you will be flat broke and live your life in apartments that suck that you can barely afford, possibly move back in with family, have crappy transportation or a nice vehicle that you can barely afford, have no vacation time to do as you please, but it won't matter because you won't have the money for a vacation. And sooner or later you will get hurt and your medical expenses will suck you dry. Find a career that you can do that is feasible and put away money into retirement. Buy a house. Don't waste your money on a nice looking car. The insurance will be too expensive and you aren't fooling anyone. People will look at you like you faked up your life for 5 to 7 years when you get that loan. You don't look cool in your flashy car. You look like a bad decision on wheels. Also, don't lift your stupid truck. You are taking your money and throwing it in the garbage. It does nothing for you, but costs you money that you could spend on improving your quality of life or investing in your future. There's a really good chance you don't even need a truck. You don't have anything to tow around besides more bad decisions. You're wasting money on gas that you will never get back every single day. Don't spend so much time worrying about what you drive. Nobody will see you in it, and when they do, they won't care. There are millions of motor vehicles. Yours is not special, and it won't last forever. You will never get a dime in return for the loan, because you will drive that thing into the ground by the time you pay it off, and every mile you drive adds maintenance costs and decreases the value. Don't lend money to people who you know are a financial risk. I stupidly lent a friend around $700-900 so he could come traveling with me and a group of friends. Even my own mother said, don't lend him money as he probably won't pay you back. But I ignored her. Weeks following, I'd thought he would do the right thing and start paying me back as I didn't have much money of my own left. He didn't. I went out with some friends one night for a drink, and he shows up, and he's at the bar buying cocktails and expensive drinks, chain smoking and living it up. After a few weeks I had to pull him aside and say, hey dude, could you start paying me back? I lent you a bunch of money and need you to start paying me back as I need it back. He gave me a sort of what, you need it back already? I didn't think it was a big deal reply. He lived in a strange world where he thinks people who save their money have endless supplies, and he sort of exists in some kind of whimsical world of adventure where there's no consequences. Now he's in his mid-30s, and while he's spent the last 15 years traveling around the world thinking he's Huck Finn, but has never finished any of his college degrees he started and dropped out of, has no money saved, no collateral, been in debt with the banks for years, and has never worked a career-based job. The kind of life that's cool when you're 21, but is pretty sad when you're approaching 40. Deprive yourself of sleep. I had a really unhealthy sleep schedule for over 5 years. I recently switched it because it started to depress me. Sleep became dreamless and did not refresh me. I could sleep for 13 hours without an effect. Going to bed just 3 hours earlier each night instantly made me feel great, refreshed, and 8 hours of sleep are enough for me. Makes your days greater and longer, brighter, and happier. Sure, partying is nice, but there's a time for it, but it's not healthy to do it every day. Make yourself older than you are. A lot of people in their mid-20s complain about being old, feeling old. Don't be that guy. Use your energy, laugh and be silly. You are far from being old. Neglect your body. By this I don't mean you should work out like crazy and be really fit. You can be chubby and that is just right if you don't feel bad. I'm talking about brushing your teeth, showering, seeing the doctor from time to time. A lot of health issues like rotten teeth, bad backs, etc. can make your future really tiresome. Maybe you just need to get a new chair or a little massage. Just take care of yourself. Smoking. Really, I have been smoking a pack a day for 6 years. I stopped in my 20s and I could not be happier. The first 2 weeks were quite a challenge, but not as awful as everyone described it. Once you get past the first month it becomes a blessing. You will feel cleaner, healthier, and have a lot more money to buy things you enjoy that won't cripple your health. I see how smoking is not just to be cool, but actually quite a pleasing activity. But if you feel the urge to smoke, just compensate for it by getting a coffee or something small. It really works. It is true, I gained around 7 kilos since stopping, but that is far more healthy than inhaling cancerous smokes. Plus I was very thin before, so now I'm actually at a healthy weight. Start working on your passions, your dreams, and don't ever stop. I used to write music, short stories, poetry. I used to make art every day of my life until I got put on a prescription for Wellbutrin and Paxil as well. I had all kinds of problems with my family and this addiction of sorts to this stimulant antidepressant that made my depression far worse. I lost a lot of friends and tried to kill myself a couple times. I still played mandolin and wrote some poems, raps, stuff like that, but I eventually stopped. I was watching Punch Brothers do their NPR Tiny Desk concert a couple months ago. I thought to myself, I used to live and breathe music. I loved this so much. I started crying and had a mini meltdown. Also, keep exercising. Everyone tells you to go experience new things and learn about yourself. Learn how to take care of yourself. A lot of the human condition in America is about this useless competition where you have to have the spouse or the house or the degree. Fuck that shit, dude. Set reasonable goals and stick to them. I lost my 20s to some dark gnarly shit. Be safe and don't let people take advantage of you. Sorry for the rambling. It was hard to fit all that I wanted to say in one comment. Take risks, play sports, be social, date. A lot of the advice here is certainly good, and I agree of course with financial wisdom and dentistry and all that point, but also your 20s is your physical and social prime, and you want to use that. You don't want to spend it all sitting on your as the whole sowing wild oats cliche is exaggerated too often, but like a lot of cliches, there is truth in it. Whatever/whomever you're into it, explore and have fun. Be active. I mean, of course you should always be active, but now is the time, before you get weird old person ailments like back pain and hernias. I turned 40 and then my knees started bothering me and the doctor tells me my cartilage is disintegrating and I'm like, oh no, how'd that happen? And he's like, dude, you're 40, so if you wanna try rock climbing or whatever, do that now before your knees or whatever team up with temporal mechanics to betray you. Not working full time at the best job you can find, getting used to and tolerating, and saving as much money as you can, with the cost of living on your own. However, people in their 20s being more carefree on average compared to older age brackets, and lots of young people racking up major debt in college. This is easier said than done. For example, I think if someone stays out of college, and out of debt as a whole, and worked full-time in entry-level manufacturing at the age of 20, and invested it right, by 30 they'd be sitting on over $100,000 minimum. That's enough for a good used car and a small house, with some money left over. So if you don't want to travel, don't have debt, and don't have family obligations, two of your major life expenses are out of the way at age 30 with retirement money, or money for children, depending on your goals, to spare. But obviously you won't have true access to that investment if it's in a Roth IRA or 401k, because the con of them being tax shelters is you can't withdraw penalty free until you are almost 60 years old. Staying in a place where they're not happy because it's familiar and it's where their friends and parents live. Not everyone has to do some big, cross-country move in their 20s, and moving is hardly ever easy, but this is the best time to pack up and go live where you've always wanted to live. Once you get married, or even move in with and so, have kids, and or buy property, moving to your dream city will be much more complicated. I live in Boston, and I love it here, and I don't mind the snow, but I know people who hate it, and complain every time we get so much as an overpass coating, and loudly long for beach weather. Winter weather here can start around Thanksgiving, and go through April. That's a lot. If you really need it to be 65 degrees, sunny, with low wind and low humidity to be happy, this really isn't the place for you. I hate to think of my winter hating peers putting down roots, growing old here, and spending roughly half of every year being miserable. A. Buying the wrong car. If you can't afford to pay down half a car's value, you can't afford it. If paying half a car's value down wipes out your savings, you can't afford that car. B. Not using your credit. Even if you only spend $100 a month and pay it all off, it's better than nothing. Credit cards are safer to use than debit, at any rate. Credit cards get stolen or compromised, and it's only imaginary money that's closed out to you. If someone steals your debit, that's your money. C. Not saving. Good lord, do not live hand to mouth. Point D. Not taking advantage of everything you're due. There's no shame in going on food stamps, and you're just dumb for not taking advantage of your company's investment matching for 401kz, buying more house than you need. You can deal with having less house than you needed when you were first on the housing market. You can't really deal with buying more house than you need without walking away from it. Point F. Not continuing to learn. Just because you have a job doesn't mean you're done. G. Not staying in any important job for more than a year. Leaving jobs after only 6 to 12 months signals to everyone else that you either don't like working or that whatever you were doing was so bad that your previous employer let you go after the probationary period. Point H. Going to college when you are not interested in college. There's nothing stopping you from going in your 30s. Meanwhile, there's plenty of room for growth in the trades. A skilled plumber who's also an engineer can make FAQ money. Not maintaining enough friendships, at least that was my experience. It is incredibly easy to make friends growing up, since children have nothing to do except go to school and interact with other kids. Even in college, it's rather easy to make friends because you are surrounded by people in your age group all day, every day. Point making friends in your early to mid 20s is also fairly easy, even if you're as bad at social interactions as I am. People in their 20s have tons of energy and free time and hormones making them pretty outgoing. Point as you hit your late 20s, your friends start getting married and having kids, or they move away, or they just have more responsibility in general. Instead of hanging out with your friends every day, like you did in childhood or every week in your early 20s, you start seeing your friends once a month. If they have kids, they need a babysitter, or if they've moved, it requires real planning. Once a month turns into once a year in that case. Personally, I made a good number of friends in my early 20s, but a few years into my 30s, and I've only acquired a handful of new friends. The rate of making new friends hasn't kept pace with the rate of falling out of touch with people. It takes a solid investment of time and emotional energy to turn acquaintances into real friends, and in my 30s, it can feel like time is running out. To make these new valued friendships, hopefully you 20-year-olds can make a conscious effort to keep your friends close and numerous. Allowing the adage "I'm an adult and I can do whatever the fuck I want" takes control of your life. It can only lead to heartache. Yes, technically you can do whatever you want now that you're an adult, but being an adult requires discipline and self-control. Yes, you can go out to eat every day, eating at the most expensive restaurants, and I'm not talking about the really hobbity-tobbity places, any place where you could easily drop $30 for a 4-course meal, appetizer, salad, entree with 2 sides, drink, and dessert. But with your decisions comes consequences. That $420 a week you spent on food, $30 for lunch and $30 for dinner, which equals $60 a day, times 7 days, could go towards more useful things, such as rent, utilities, groceries, clothing, gas for your car, or fare for local transit. And other things. Yes, you should enjoy your newfound freedom, but you must also take responsibility for your actions, and plan accordingly. Set yourself a budget, and most importantly, stick to it. This is the order of importance for what you should pay: rent, utilities, gas, water, electric, other bills, cell, cable, internet, credit cards, car payment, gas for car/fare for local transit, to get to and from work, groceries spend/misc. As you can see, fun stuff comes dead last. This includes going out to eat, going to see a movie, going clothes shopping, and other fun items. If there is something you really need or want, start saving. Pinch pennies where you can, but make sure all your debtors are paid in the order listed. For example, if you need new clothes, set aside a small amount each paycheck until you have enough to buy a few new items. Need a new couch, chair, or mattress? Save your money. Trust someone who's been there and still has trouble breaking the habit from time to time. Be careful with your finances. It's okay to treat yourself once in a while, but don't go overboard, and don't make it a routine thing. Not having proper identification. It's like a plunger. Get it before you need it, even if you are a naturally born US citizen. Loan and apartment applications, organization and certain job applications, travel, etc. might surprise the heck out of you by needing identification documents you didn't think you'd need, and by that point, there's little/no time to get them. Do yourself a massive favor, spend the money and time to make absolutely sure you have a driver's license and/or state-issued photo identification card, a valid social security card, your birth certificate and/or a reissued one from your birth state/country if the original is lost, not just a photocopy of it, although that is good to have on hand too. You are an adult now, you need to be in possession of your BC, optional, but definitely helpful, a passport or passport card. These are a little on the expensive side, but they are far more valuable than you think when it comes to ID, and you don't have to re-up on them for a decade. Not getting an education, or majoring in something marketable that they don't actually like without getting a more rounded liberal arts education. I'm in my late 20s in a PhD program, and I have a lot of friends around my age just getting their BAs because they thought they didn't need college, realized that the degree itself is actually necessary for a lot of things, and are now struggling to do school when everyone else is so much younger. I also know a lot of people who majored in business, marketing, or STEM fields because they thought it would be practical, but it either didn't help him or he didn't like the work and now feel like they wasted a lot of time and money on a college education. The specifics of your college degrees don't matter for many industries. I know as many people working in tech with English and philosophy degrees as I do with tech related degrees. Two of my friends who work in marketing have BFAs. I have also worked retail jobs, albeit higher end retail jobs, that required a college degree. Drugs, dwe, addiction in general. Even without addiction problems that we will follow you and make finding new employment much harder. A lack financial education. Using credit card irresponsibly, buying a car or house one cannot afford, failing to save money, and failing to understand the core concepts behind investing before investing money. It's not gambling if you do it right. Diversify, don't time the market, and it's important to invest your long-term savings or else inflation will eat your lunch. Children that cannot easily be accommodated or are unwanted. There are options including adoption. It's not fair to anyone when the child is used as a meal ticket. Unfit parents lead to unfit parents not striving towards a career. While this isn't possible for everyone, many people in their 20s think that their job is good enough and they have plenty of time to find a more permanent position. They don't appreciate the difficulty involved and the constant effort necessary to find a good job with long-term potential. Getting married / having a kid early on. Going to college for the sake of going to college. Take some time. Figure out a good field that you don't hate but is also in demand. Don't be afraid to simply get a technical certificate of some kind. Skilled jobs are in demand. I'll let familial pressure push me into college like it was the faking 13th grade and I got a degree that is in a cool field, but the pay is shit, demand low, and with a lot of continuing education requirements. If I'd taken a while, I might have chosen differently. Get into hard drugs trouble with the law screwing up credit. Starting good credit habits can pay off handsomely throughout a lifetime. Taking care of oneself, like credit, fitness habits can pay off significant dividends. Not saying everyone should be a fitness fanatic, but that metabolism is gonna slow down sooner than later, so not being good used to overeating and not being averse to at least light exercise now can be of huge benefit. Save money in any way you possibly can. 1. Some banks, here in Norway it's every bank, are so eager to get your money that if you open a long-term savings account then you get a stupid high interest, especially the BSU option, which means your money is locked for down payment on a house or starting. Maximum it out or save as much as you can. The housing market seems to be a faking pain on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. So not only will this give you an edge, it will also lower the necessary mortgage, which will give you more money in the future. 2. Buffer account. Have at least 1 or 2 months worth of money just sitting there. Once you've filled it up, don't touch it. Use it for when you need it. And when I say I need it, not the I wanna go to a sunny place and party, I mean my washing machine and car that I need to get to work broke down. Need it. Instead of going into debt that will take you longer to pay off than saving and cost more, you'll pay everything off, then start saving the buffer again until it's full. 3. Retirement. Boring as fuck, but adult life is boring as fuck, especially finances. Although the best saving you can do is get rid of any debt, saving for retirement is the next best thing. Once you have a down payment plan on your debt that you can live with, and that leaves you a little extra. In Norway they expect the retirement age for my generation to be around 73,5, currently 67, and the amount I get will probably be reduced. My parents' generation got bump faked in one settlement. The government had to set down public retirement fund to not end up like Greece, and my generation will probably get bump faked even harder once they realize they can't pay for all of us unless 1/3 commit mass suicide due to financial difficulties. 4. For the love of God, learn how to do household chores properly, like cleaning and cooking. Noodles might be tempting at a young age because it's quick and easy, but after 10 years you'll be bored and sick, and if you can't cook a decent dinner you'll feel lost. Go to your parents, have them teach you, or grandparents. I'm still in my 20s, 28, and I'm already having regrets. I would say, as others have said, procrastinating with the thought that I have time. After high school I put off going to college believing that I would go in a year or two when I figured out what I wanted to do. Throughout my 20s I never did pursue higher education and never got serious about finding a stable career or saving money. The idea of driving terrified me, so I never bothered to get my driver's license. Now I'm 28 years old and rent my own apartment and have a job, but it is not a stable or enjoyable job and not an ideal place to live either. Now I'm pushing 30 and must try to get into a more suitable career with no higher education. I got my driver's license and a car a few months ago, but had a much harder time learning than my peers who did it as teenagers. Most of my peers are buying their first houses, their first brand new cars, getting promoted, getting married, going on vacations, having children etc. And I feel very behind because I have spent the past 8 years having fun, not taking my future seriously, being held back by fear and procrastinating. Biggest tip would be to work and save. Plan for your future now so that you can enjoy later. TLDR. Do not procrastinate. Work and save. It will pay off when you're buying your first home or having that fantasy wedding or going on that dream vacation. Not investing in yourself, your finances, your body and your relationships. Put money away from each paycheck. I know it sounds tough, but 10% of your income should go into savings. 401k and an emergency fund, 5% into a savings account, 3% into your 401k, 2% into an emergency fund. It adds up. You'll be blown away by how quickly it adds up. I didn't learn this until my late 20s. Now that I have more expendable income, I've doubled how much I save. Workout. Enjoy your waning metabolism each weekend, but try to eat healthy and limit drinking and eating out to the weekends. Work out 3 to 5 days a week too. You'll wake up one day with a beer gut if you're not careful. Try to keep up with your close friends from college and always make time for your family. People get old fast. You're gonna start seeing friends get married, have kids, buy houses. You might even find yourself in that boat. Always make time for your friends and family. Not setting goals, long term and short term. What do you want out of life, and what will it take to accomplish it? Not saving at least 10% of your income. If you have a 401k, invest maximum to match, then sock away 10% in a savings account. Having a liquid cushion is a game changer. Not getting insurance, health, renters or home are winners with an umbrella policy. Get a basic life insurance that'll at least cover burial and bills. Shit happens, spend less than you make. I can't stress this enough. Buy a used car, used furniture. Not establishing credit. If you can, pay for everything with credit cards and pay it off every month. Do not carry a balance. Get a card with rewards so you get paid to use their card. Not continuing your education. Get certifications in your field. Start working on your next degree. Learn a language, learn to code, or how to automate your job. If you can communicate with someone who isn't a native speaker, that's a huge asset. If you can do your job quicker and have more free time, that's a win for you, and it's a selling point when you ask for a raise. Not taking a vacation, killing yourself for the paycheck. You need a mental break more than weekends. Your 20s are when you lay the foundation of your life. Don't get me wrong, you'll fuck something up. It's not the end of the world. Learn from your mistakes and improve. If you don't fuck up, something will throw you for a curve. Just persevere and remember your goals, long term and short term. Paying back the minimums on those college loans. Or worse, deferring payment on said loans. I have a housemate who graduated with $21,000 in college loans, but defer it for the maximum time allowed, 10 years, and now she owes $27,000 and the minimum payments are all being applied to the interest first. Getting a new car loan while having college loan payments. Buying used isn't going to hurt you as long as you get it well inspected and buy wisely, and can save you 10-20k versus the price of a new car getting upsold on a car purchase. Sure, it's only $250 a month, but what about a better maintenance plan, tire coverage, roadside assistance, Suddenly you're looking at 400 plus a month, which doesn't seem like much, but your car insurance goes up 2 point, not throwing money into an emergency fund every month. Even if it's $20 at the end of the month, having a 2-month buffer space for unexpected car repair bills, medical bills, or the sudden layoff can make a difference between the forced maximuming out of credit cards death spiral and not being able to pay power/rent/gas/car. Thinking medical insurance covers everything, like elective dental surgery, or glasses, or specialist payment fees for an HMO point buying a house using an arm. This is a big part of what caused the housing crash. At the end of the 3 or 5 years, people's mortgage payments went from mostly affordable to impossible, and they lost their house and wrecked their credit rating on top of it, which made renting a new place with almost no money really hard. Eating out all the time instead of cooking. Sure, it's more time efficient, but $20 to $30 a day adds up, versus being able to live on a lot less, cooking healthier meals while doing it, and being able to take leftovers for lunch. Echoed emphatically on 401k early and often. I'm sitting on 6 digits worth of retirement money I can't touch after 2 decades, so I should be fine for cash when I retire, as long as I move out of the state. Spending too much of their money on housing point. When you get older, you will have greater housing needs. You might have a partner who lives with you. You might have kids who need to live in a safe place with a good school system. You might have a home business that requires space, or separation from neighbors, or something like that point. But when you're in your 20s, you're the freest you're ever going to be, and your ability to rent one room in a shitty triple decker with a bunch of weird roommates is at its highest. Your housing will probably always be your most expensive line item in your budget, and the hardest to change. Spend as long as you can living in the shittiest apartment you can stand. Don't get an apartment in a safer area with a doorman. Don't live alone. Don't move in with a boyfriend/girlfriend who has higher expectations for standards of living than you do. Don't get a dog that's going to require you to get a nicer place with a pet deposit point. Live in as shitty an apartment as you can stand, for as long as you can stand, and save that money for a down payment when you actually have needs for good housing. Living a lifestyle that exceeds your limits. Goal is to live below your means and save up, since these are your peak non-big expense years, ideally, reaching for milestones before you're both fiscally and emotionally ready, just in order to keep up with friends, or because you feel like it's just the next step. Marriage, kids, home ownership. These should all be conscious, well thought, fully committed decisions. In the meantime, enjoy the stage of life you are in. Eating poorly and failing to exercise. It's easiest to fall off the wagon after college, when you are living by yourself, or with roommates that you don't really interact much with. Not continuing to invest in your career. Getting the job is one thing, getting good at it is another. Learn new skills that will advance you, build your network, own whatever you are doing. If you hate it, you can switch, but don't do a poor job, because you don't like what you do, because you may not like what you do, because you haven't fully given it a shot. Not taking responsibility, and not learning to communicate at an adult level. You can get away with it through college, but without developing these skills, your career and relationships will start to crumble. People will want to have serious conversations with you, and you need to be able to be present in the conversation. Actively listen rather than waiting for your moment to speak, and give the conversation the level of depth and severity it deserves. Not saving money/spending too much money, not establishing credit, not investing/starting a retirement account, squandering time, not being selective about who you keep around you. Number one sort of applies to a lot of people. There are many people in genuine financial hardship, but many are just making poor choices. If your family is wealthy, then great, but learning how to save your own money and spend it wisely is a skill. Number two is how you set yourself up for the future as an adult. There are ways around not having a credit history or paths in life you can take that mean you don't necessarily need one. That said, if you ever need to borrow more than a few $100 for something, and your friend isn't spotting you for it, it's probably coming from a bank or other financial institution who will need credit history to determine if they should lend it to you or not. Number three could be anything, and should be pretty simple and low fee. If you're gonna be saving money, may as well make it work for you. If you can't commit to throwing it in an IRA, you can keep it relatively liquid by using something like robo-investing with some place like Wealthfront or Betterment. The advantage of throwing it in an IRA is, or rather the disadvantage is, there's little provision for catching up if you miss contributing for the year. Once you pass the last contribution date, typically the federal filing date the following year, you've lost the opportunity to put money in for that year. The current limit is $5,500, which may or may not make a difference. Number 4 is just my personal thing. I'm not saying don't have fun or waste time when it's appropriate. I'm saying don't fall into the trap of thinking I'm only in my 20s. I have plenty of time to do this other shit later. Sooner is better than later, and now is better than sooner. Use whatever free time you have to learn and experience as much as possible, because circumstances generally change as you get older, and those changes usually don't come with greater flexibility and free time. Number 5. We're all human, and I assume you've learned how to love and accept your friends despite their idiosyncrasies and differences. If you haven't, then add that to this list. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily put up with people. You're free to accept or reject their companionship or friendship without being a bad person. You don't have to keep company with people who are excessively negative or destructive or whatever doesn't fit what you want. That said, broad exposure to different people with different perspectives is never a bad thing. There are caveats to all the above, and I've outlined some of them, but these are general guidelines I find valuable and wish I had when I was in my 20s. Also, don't be an asshole. Life is hard already. Why make things harder? Bit of poetic non-advice from Sam Johnson. Long expected 1 in 20 lingering year at last is flown. Pomp and pleasure, pride, and plenty, great Sir John, are all your own. Loosened from the miner's tether, free to mortgage or to sell, wild as wind, and light as feather. Bid the slaves of thrift farewell. Call the betters, Kates, and Jenny's, every name that laughs at care. Lavish of your grandsire's guineas, show the spirit of an heir all that prey on vice and folly, joy to see their quarry fly. Here the game's to light and jolly, there the lender gravens lie. Wealth, Sir John, was made to wander, let it wander as it will. See the jockey, see the pander, bid them come and take their fill. When the bonny blade carouses, pockets full and spirits high, what are acres? What are houses? Only dirt, or wet or dry. If the guardian or the mother tell the woes of willful waste, scorn their counsel and their pother, you can hang or drown at last. As a middle-aged man, I can tell you, you are not as fat as you think. Not only fat, it'll be the same with any other adjective you write in that sentence, because time goes by, and we are not the same we used to. However, this is a great thread, because the experience of the older ones might help lots of young people out. Typical mistakes, and how to prevent them. Overweight. Enjoy all types of food, but keep a balance. Fruits, pasta, meat, vegetables, exercise. Don't run 2 marathons in a week, but practice some sport, and go to the gym from time to time. Bad mood and boredom, have fun. Working and studying all day will only make you realize that one day you're 30 and you have not enjoyed life. If possible, baldness. Well, this one is tricky because hair treatments don't work for anyone. Nevertheless, just try new styles such as a grown beard. Girls and even men love that. Economic issues. Well, the system says that if you go to university you will have beautiful children, a great job, and succeed in life. I'm sorry to tell you that it doesn't work like that. You may either start selling nails and maybe have your own company in a couple of years, or be a great lawyer who works for a big company as just one more slave lawyer. So, it is not degrees, but attitude and compromise what matter in life. I think you all will be fine with all this knowledge for now. Best regards, God. Atheism. Basically, tell yourself this: if a subject is interesting enough for you to go dump a mountain of cash into, then you certainly won't mind doing some research on it at the public library first. That's where you can test your interest. Find out if this is really your calling. Are you really interested in this? Are you just devouring books on this topic? If you can't get yourself to the library, then don't go get some student loan, buying yourself a career and end up just going through a program because of expectations, or because of some "well, I've already gone this far" BS. Test your passion. Go read about it at the library. Are you yawning uncontrollably? Or are you having a hard time letting the damn books go? Pay your 30 to 100+ K only when the public libraries and the internet have nothing more to offer, when it becomes absolutely necessary in order to progress. If your mind still craves for more, that's when you go point. Or if you come to a point where you basically just need the credentials or the connections to get some work done. I see a lot of people posting sound financial advice. Some write in proper tips for not screwing yourself over and keeping in shape. While it's good to keep yourself physically and financially straight, here is a two-parter advice that I haven't seen yet. 1. Not keeping in contact with family. Basically, keep in contact with friends and family over the years. Life can get hectic, and at times, will sweep you away from them. They will be going through the same, and if you ignore those bonds, many will fade away. So try to keep in contact with them too, not getting out and about, and just staying in one place. This right here can take the form of getting out and traveling in your home country and or abroad, or in other matters, like moving to a new location for a better job. Both are rewarding when done sensibly, and sometimes it's for the best. Though, I can't stress enough the whole taking a vacation once in a while, and yes, this is if you can afford it. 3. Not taking time out for yourself. I have noticed in myself in the past, and other 20-somethings now and forever, that they don't take time to slow down and unwind. Whether it be through a hobby, walks on the beach, or just going for a walk to think. Not many folks see the wisdom in that, but it is there. If you find yourself always working or schooling yourself away, take a day or so to just slow down and let your thoughts flow. Edit. General editing. Seems like that one has been well covered. The biggest mistake is not getting to know yourself as much as you can. People that constantly go through life going, now, why the hell did I say that? Or why does every relationship end in disaster? People who are always angry, I think they're not honestly looking inward. Many of us carry baggage around that we don't face, or we don't think the things that caused it are worth dealing with, bad parents, etc. If we weren't molested by our uncles, we are like it's all good. But often it's not all good. If you hate your job, hell, if you don't love your job, ask yourself if there's anything you really love to do that has a career path. Try to push your life that way. If it's, well, sure, but it would take 20 years to get there. Get started. 20 years will fly by. Getting up every morning thinking what will I get to work on today is really a wonderful thing. I had a checkup after 20 years doctor free, and he couldn't believe I wasn't on antidepressants. Everyone is, you know. Told him I have a blast working and a great family. He said, got it. We just don't see much of that. If the real estate market is strong and you like your area, consider buying a house as early as you can. Even something small. Houses around me have doubled in value in 10 years. I'm glad the wife and I really scrimped and did it. You can get stuck with a big boat anchor, so get good advice and decide if it's right for you. Home ownership is one of the few paths to the American dream that's fairly widely available. As someone about to graduate college, I've realized that people who live exuberant lifestyles or who spend a lot of money tend to be in the worst amount of trouble. I've learned that you shouldn't spend too much money. Be careful with it. That extra $5 you spend at the store can mess up your budget later. You shouldn't move too quickly in relationships. Know them. How they act when they are sad, angry, etc. can affect you. You have to be careful, especially in relationships, because people with innocent faces can have malicious intentions and they can be toxic. I'm talking about friendships / relationships / any interpersonal interactions. You shouldn't move in with people unless you fully know they are reliable. I've heard from a friend how her roommate isn't paying her half of the rent, and she is stressed about it. Don't get fancy things until you're in a position to get aforementioned fancy things. Don't do things without researching the risks first. This goes for any jobs, etc. you may do. Know what is expected of you. Don't settle down too young. People change and grow as they age, and everyone matures differently. A lot of people my age have children and they talk about how they regret being tied down before they've gotten the chance to explore and do things. Last but not least, don't change yourself for others. If you like being a nerd and you enjoy nerdy things, don't try to act like a jock to try to impress people. Don't let toxic people try to change you. Enjoy being yourself because you're unique. A lot of people in their 20s have a lot of pressure to be perfect, finding the perfect job, perfect marriage, the list goes on and on. You can still be yourself even if things may not be turning out right, and the biggest mistake you can make is changing yourself to try to fit into a relationship or friend circle. I'm sorry for the wall of text, but this is what I've learned. Biggest things I can think of are school and credit. Not everyone is in the right mindset for college right out of high school, so rather than going all in with a student loan at 16 to 20 credits per semester in whatever to keep up with a 4-year uni curriculum your mom picked, just take it easy at 12 credits at a local community college in general studies or business/management, so you still count as a full-time student and explore adult life in the meantime. Part-time jobs, internships, etc. If it's about money, then 6 credits a semester at a community college will get you an associate's in 5 years or less. And trust me, once you are mid to late 20s, that associate's is going to boost your hireability anywhere. Plus by then, if you already have a full-time job, you can complete an online bachelor's degree from a state university by transferring those 60 odd credits and have a BS in whatever before you're 30, which again will open so many doors for you once networking and work experience reach their ceiling. With credit, I'm not even talking about straight up ignorant things like not playing into the credit card scam or going all cash, but rather silly things like not paying your phone bill and ignoring those collection calls which result in a 250-point dip in your score and can blacklist you from certain job positions that do a credit and background check. Just read up on credit building, start with a couple secured credit or student credit cards from large banks, and enjoy 850 plus credit by the time you are in your 30s and ready to buy a house. Become addicted to heroin or methamphetamine by way of prescription painkillers and prescription ad medication. By the time I had turned 18, the prescription pill epidemic over here in the good old U.S was in a flourishing crescendo. Everybody experimented, or knew many peers who did. Most outgrew it, some didn't. Some of the ones who tried the harder sheet found it overwhelming. Some couldn't afford the sheet, or caught a possession charge, and found their place as a cog in the pick. Some found the scene just too damn obscene and dangerous, but some yet remained. I graduated college in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in information security with honors. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps 3 months after my 22nd birthday. On my 24th birthday I had my 3rd seizure and was kicked out of my mother's house. I've been sober since 20s are a tumultuous time of change, uncertainty, and understanding/coming to peace with who you are. A lot of people I knew who had predispositions for addictions really blew their life up. It is an affliction. Edit. If you're an addict, there is a whole different reality waiting to embrace you and love you. If you know someone who is, try and understand how their shoes feel. I'm going to be turning 27, so I'm not out of my 20s yet, but here's what I learned so far. Not getting the right college degree with a career plan has already been mentioned, and I agree with that 100%. I majored in psychology, and I'm actually lucky I got a decent job, though, not career, with it, but what I really wanted to do requires a master's, and who knows when I'll go back to school for that. It would be a good idea to develop a specific skill set while in college, so you can have an actual career with your bachelor's. Wasting time/not finding a balance. I have a tendency to be more serious and plan things out a lot, but I'm starting to think I should have had a more work-fun balance in my early 20s. I'm not even talking about expensive things that others have mentioned here, like traveling, even just little fun activities every once in a while. Sometimes I get tunnel vision and forget the present. My idea of fun has been books/movies/TV/games, and I really could have branched out more and developed more hobbies, not meeting new people. I'm 6+ hours away from my hometown and do not really spend time with anyone other than my husband and pets and occasionally coworkers. I have tried holding on to old friendships, but it is hard and I could really use having some people to hang with. This is what I'm going to tackle next. I hope. Things I did do right. Sorry, this is against a lot of people's advice, but I'm married to the love of my life and I met him at 15. Still in love and having a great life together. My advice to everyone, though, don't get married until you feel like you don't have to. If you get married and you think it is going to change your relationship, you shouldn't get married. It is kind of counterintuitive, but you shouldn't feel the need to get married, because it really shouldn't be changing things. Also, marry your best friend. Have finances in order, budgeting well, not buying a new car, not having kids. There's been a lot of great advice given so far, and without trying to be a contrarian, my best advice is to try to find balance. To realize that a lot of people will give you solid advice, but that sometimes you need to toss that sheet straight out the window. To add experience to your life. Everyone forgets what their previous years were like, and tend to the bias that comes with retrospective looks through personal experience. The people that have current money problems will tell you to save more. The people with relationship problems will tell you to be more careful in love and to enjoy being single. Just because these suggestions are anecdotal doesn't mean you should disregard them. It just means they need to be tempered by the realization that someone else learned them by faking up along the way, and that you should have the same benefit of making mistakes on that note. Fail early and fail often. Learn to fail better and learn to fail with grace. In all things, especially in romance. Take chances, because not taking them ends up costing you a lot more in what if so within reason. If you want to experiment, do your reading, so that you minimize your risk. Lots of people have enjoyed promiscuity and some recreational drug use, and turned out just fine, but there will always be examples set by those who never made boundaries, or simply got unlucky. The old line that no one here gets out of here alive ought to be an inspiration, rather than permission to hurt yourselves, or others with poor choices. Life is difficult, no one will claim otherwise, but your 20s ought to be a place to let your curiosity take you where you've never been before. I'm 31, so I'm fresh out of my 20s. My own personal mistake was settling for shitty jobs, because I only cared about partying. I wasted a lot of time and money on booze and drugs rather than education, or learning a skill trade. I couldn't keep a job longer than a year or two maximum, and wasn't willing to clean up my bis or hair to apply for the better paying jobs in my area. Luckily I rebounded by about 27 due to DUI and a brush with death, because of my poor decisions, and focused on my career goals. I started at square one in a new field, and made very little money, but I worked hard, and took pride in my work. Now I have good paying job with potential to move up, and it doesn't require back-breaking work. I don't regret all the fun I had, but I do regret letting it be the only thing I cared about. A lot of that fun caused me a lot of trouble and financial hardship. Be smart and learn to have fun, but that it's not fun to be broke and in your parents' basement at 25 with no job, license or vehicle. And start a retirement fund as soon as possible. Even if it's just $20 a month for starters. Applying for way too many credit cards. Once you start down that rabbit hole, it's impossible to dig out. The banks design credit that way, and most people have severe difficulty escaping the allure of being able to get what they want when they want it. Everyone knows it's important to have good credit, but nobody tells you the basics of how to do it. So, here's what you should do. Get one card to establish your credit rating, one only. Pay off the balance in full each and every month, without exception. If that means you have to limit how much you spend on the card, so you'll be able to pay it off, so much the better. Make it a habit, something automatic you do without thinking, and you'll thank yourself later. Create a budget that takes all your bills and expenses into account, and set a maximum that you will allow yourself to spend with the card in a month. Do not exceed this limit. Ideally, you should use it for pre-authorized payments, like your home gas bill or cell phone, and not use it for impulse purchases. In fact, I would even go so far as to just leave it in the house, to avoid temptation. Once you do, you'll find it harder and harder to make your payments, and you'll start looking at other options like high interest loans and other credit cards. You'll start trying to pay off some cards with the credit from other ones, and it's a never-ending cycle. It's exceedingly difficult to get out of, even if you have a good job with a decent wage. If you're living check to check, it's impossible. And if you get a car loan, I would suggest avoiding getting a credit card until it's paid off. That loan goes against your credit rating as well, and if you're just scraping by and suddenly have a major mechanical failure, you'll be tempted to use the card to pay for the repairs, and then you're screwed. It's a hole you won't get out of. Don't stagnate. Seriously. You might get tired after work, come home, pop open a cold one or smoke a bowl, or both, and browse Reddit for a little bit, before hopping on Discord to game with the brothers until you finally AFK to master, bait yourself to sleep. You could do this one night, and it would be okay. After all, you may or may not be out of college, at which point life just becomes one work day after the next, with some weekend cream filling squished in between. You could even do this tomorrow, and not really worry about it. Or maybe even the next night, or the next week, or the next month, or even the next year. After all, every night is just like the last. It's easy to fall away into these wasteful routines while you're in your 20s, after having graduated school. You won't even realize it either, probably not even questioning it, until you hit your late 20s or 30s. However, if you have aspirations to be literally anything in life, perhaps a professional gamer, stream personality, or professional artist, it's important to not fall into a relaxing routine. Your life will waste away in front of your eyes as you just do the bare minimum to survive. Anything more than that will become stressful and tiring, and not worth the effort. You'll have a few good moments, but not enough to constitute a meaningful life at the end of the day. How you spend your time, no matter how your day went, no matter how you feel at the end of the day, or at the beginning. Your actions define who you are as a person, and will shape the path you will take forward for the rest of your life. I'm speaking from the heart here, and from personal experience. Don't be a loser, don't stagnate, and if you want something to happen to you, no matter where it may be, you have to make it happen. If you keep saying maybe I should, then just faking do it. Whatever it is, do it. I spent more than a decade saying maybe I should go to college, while working jobs I don't want to do for the rest of my life. But I finally stepped up, and I'm a week away from finishing my first semester of college. So if you're thinking of college, thinking of traveling somewhere, thinking of learning some skill, whatever it is, just faking do it. Oh, and the insurance your job is offering, that you don't want, because you're a healthy young person, go ahead and get it. Shit happens and shit gets expensive. I went to get a physical one day, just trying to be all precautionary and shit, and told the doc I was having some light stomach pains lately. Oh hey, my otherwise relatively healthy self now has Crohn's disease. Insurance helped. A whole lot. Even if I do still have tons of medical debt, it's a lot smaller than what it would be without it. I can also afford prescriptions. Get married and have kids. Seriously, unless you're really late 20s, I imagine it's difficult as shit to support a family in a relationship that's most likely going to fail. I mean, either you're in college or out of college, but entry-level jobs are basically high-class minimum wage. Unless you didn't go to college, and, well, this is gonna sound elitist as fuck, but there's no way you can afford a kid or a family at that age with no college degree. Don't get me wrong, there are exceptions, but they are not the norm. Most people in their 20s who get married and have kids get divorced, and the kid is the one who suffers, since both their parents are paid next to minimum wage and both are resentful of each other. Seriously, don't get married or have kids until you can afford the worst case scenarios like divorce or your kid being born with a disability. That everything is solved with love crap. You will suffer, your partner will suffer, and your kid will suffer. I'm in my early 40s, and I think that our culture is a little bit crazy with celebrating both sex and drinking. Mind you, it was back when I was in my 20s as well. There is nothing inherently wrong with these things. I don't view sex in and of itself to be sinful, or drinking to be sinful. Just that these become ways that we live our lives in our 20s. Goals. And as I've gotten older, I guess I feel like there are better ways to live one's life. I was never a heavy drinker, but I had to quit drinking due to a medical issue. I miss good beer, because I loved shit like Belgian ales made by monks. But I haven't been really drunk in about 5 years and I don't miss it. Maybe it's because it hits you harder when you're older. But now that I don't drink, it's weird to me how much pop culture revolves around drinking. Both today's pop culture and that which I grew up around point I don't think it's wrong to have and enjoy a drink on occasion, but when you're drinking to get faked up, that's a problem. When you're drinking because it lowers your inhibitions or you think it makes you cooler or smarter or funnier or just less anxious, that's a problem point as far as sex goes. I have no problem with the act itself, but I encourage people to try and quell lust. So much of the problems people have surrounding sex are due to not viewing potential sexual partners as people, but as such objects. There's nothing wrong with finding someone attractive, but when you view a person just for the shape of their body or what you want to do to that body, you're not really seeing them as a person. I think that we, as a society, could stand to focus on building healthy relationships between men and women, or people of any gender, whether you fuck or don't, whether you drink or don't. Do it with integrity and love in your heart, not lust or a desire to self-medicate with drunkenness. That's abuse, and you, and everyone around you, deserve better. Make mistakes. You can be warned. You know how you're supposed to get your shit together. You will find out that all that advice just will make you feel like you got to be perfect. You're not and never will be. Point nowadays society is all about your personal luck/happiness, while life is not about that. Life is hard, and that will never change. You gotta work to make it bearable, but even then it will never be a free ride. The only way to keep on going is telling yourself that everything is worthwhile. Just believe it. That sort of naive is what keeps me going. Plus all the little things that don't seem to matter when you want to be perfect. Parties, friends, that little bite of pickle on a cheeseburger, the realization that there's a sun shining on your bald head. Do at whatever age and at whatever time it takes to be happy. Fuck it. I worried way too long about school, and if I did make the right decision with that education point, I never did finish it and learned a lot more about life, more about myself than if I would have. Maybe that's a cheap excuse. I don't really know. What I do know is that even though I'm always full of doubts, I've been happy for the first time in a long while. Just ignoring the expectations of nowadays society and do whatever makes you happy in the moment. It made me a different person, even though I might regret it at some point. I don't think I will. There's too many beautiful years that I've had because of this, and it still even sounds unreal for me to talk about a beautiful year because I'm used to beautiful moments. Or less. I wish life was better, like it's expected to be. Don't do drugs, but I mean it. Go ahead and smoke pot if you want, but don't get into a blow or anything like that. It's so lame and just really not worth it. I'll say I've had those moments where I look up and I'm absolutely in love with the moment, but it's because I was high and dopamine was plowing through my receptors. Even if you don't have an addictive attitude, you'll wake up one day and realize you're enabling those around you like I did. Also, you get paranoid all the time and you're mentally and physically a piece of garbage. Whether you are male or female, do not hook up with someone you aren't already familiar with / involved with if you are drunk. It's not worth it. I have come across so many stories where people get embarrassed because of who they hooked up with and play the rap card. It's not fair to sexual assault survivors or the person accused. Points. Do not get too faked up around people you wouldn't trust with your life. And no, I don't mean the people who get drunk and start fights for you. Those people are insane. I mean, don't take anything from a stranger, and if you do, just test it. Go out and buy a test to make sure you're not putting bath salts in your body. If you're experimenting with drugs, be around people who will have your best interest in mind, even if that means taking you to the hospital. If you're drinking in a crowded space, have a bud who's going to look out for you no matter what. Someone who isn't going to leave you for some rando they meet. Point. Always know your self-worth. Surround yourself with good people who support and motivate you to be your best, not some crowd you fall into because you're going through a phase. If you don't trust your friends, you need to separate yourself. I made the mistake of hanging around these faking loser boys who were sick in the head, and 2 of them assaulted me while I was drunk and sleeping. Also, do whatever makes you happy. I mean literally just do it. Don't get crazy tattoos though. Tattoos are expensive and shouldn't be wasted. Bonus tip: you better be paying a decent amount of cash for tattoos/piercings, because dude, that's on your skin forever and it's worth spending that money. Put yourself first. It's okay to be selfish when it comes to growth. My final point. Treat others the way you'd want to be treated. Love people and their diversity. Educate yourself on different culture/people. Don't judge the cover of the book unless you really get those vibes. Always trust your gut, don't be ignorant. And if someone corrects you, thank them. Not traveling. Okay, bear with me. So this may sound dumb and not really a big mistake to a lot of people, but believe me, it is. In my 20s, I went to a few places, but for the most part just went to Vegas or others I had gone to before. If I wanted a vacation, I never really bothered to venture anywhere I wasn't at least partly already familiar with, certainly not outside of the country. Now that I'm in my 30s, I have this urge to just travel, to see what's out there in the world outside of my comfort zone that I'm familiar with. But I have kids, I have a career, I have financial responsibilities on a regular basis, that are money that I probably imagined I could even make in salary when I was in my 20s. Holy shit, are kids expensive. I can't just spin a globe and go wherever it stops. Hell, to even go on a date night with my wife is a whole painstaking ordeal that requires significant planning. My biggest regret is that when I actually had the opportunity to explore the world in my 20s, I passed it up. Like a damn fool, I missed out. Don't make that mistake. Thinking that money is everything. I've seen so many people dictate their entire life by money. They pick a college major, not by what they want to do, but by some list in a magazine of top salaries by major. They choose what city to live in, not based on where they want to be, but based on a list of lowest cost of living. Yes, it's important to be practical. Being poor sucks. But it's not everything. If you only follow money, you'll find yourself 50, middle class, and depressed as shit. I ignored the advice of pretty much everyone and just did what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel the world, so I chose an international oriented major and got jobs overseas. Now in my late 20s and I've lived in 5 countries on 3 continents and had business trips in about 25 others. Yeah, I could have just gone to engineering school and I'd have a lot more money, but I'd still be in my hometown and wondering if I should have followed my dreams. Money is important, but it's not everything. Be aware of it and make good choices, but don't build your life around it. People usually don't realize until they're old that it doesn't really matter what car you drove or how fancy your apartment was. It matters what you did, what you saw, what you experienced. Focus on that. I think it's important to put on paper what you actually want to strive for in your life. It's so easy to do nothing and go through the motions, and very easy to read threads like this and do nothing. Create tangible goals to work toward, and not things like I want to be rich and successful, which are completely subjective and very immediate goals. Short term, long term. If you don't know where you're going, it's impossible to get there. And even if you don't know anything, write down what you think you want and just look at it for a while. See if it's just some story you've been telling yourself about what you want for your life or what you truly want. Become self-aware and objective enough to assess your own life. Create tangible goals and train yourself to become disciplined enough to follow through with your plan. When your motivation fails you, which it will, the longer you wait to develop this skill, the harder it is. In no particular order, wrap it up. You don't need it if you need to use credit to get it. Paying bills and groceries on a car that's paid off monthly, NBD. But stay the hell out of a shoe store/Best Buy. Making friends is tough. Hold on hard to the ones you already have. It's easier to stay in shape than get in shape. Source, roundish 37-year-old man. Wrap it up. You're either out $700-ish or 18 years of your life. Both aren't cheap, one far more costly. Mentioned twice for a reason. Maximum you're $401k to the hilt, especially if you get a match. It's literally free extra money if your employer matches. You don't see it in your take home, so you never use that number as a budget basis. It's pre-tax, so you pay less in taxes. And it's essentially in a lockbox, so you can't go in and raid it. On top of the previous, take advantage of every single tax loophole you can. TurboTax costs $100. A decent accountant costs $300 and will save you more than what you paid him. I usually have around 85 pages in my tax return, so I don't even bother trying to do it myself. Having kids before you're done with college. If you're the kind of person who is taking out loans and not having it all paid for by family. Also drugs. Lots and lots of drugs. Alcohol included. Never trust your friends to take care of you while you're drunk. Never. They usually have the opposite in mind because they think it's funny. They'll lead you to fuck yourself up. That's how fraternities get in the papers from someone dying from alcohol poisoning. Never trust your friends. They're usually too stupid to know what they're talking about. And pot can negatively affect you. It's still a drug. Don't care if it's better or worse than alcohol or tobacco. It doesn't matter. It's still going to change you. Not everyone can take that shit and be productive. It can make you paranoid and lead you to more panic attacks or depression if you are prone to them. Just keep your eye on your studies and starting out your life. There's plenty of chances to fuck your life later. Mini rant. I'm 23 and I'm commenting from what I've learned from / seen from the older people I work with. I'm the youngest by at least 7 years. It's a gift to know what you want to do / be. To be passionate about something. We are all just running around like beheaded chickens and doing blah work until something clicks. So when you have a passion, nurture it. Work for it. It doesn't have to be a career. It can be a hobby, side job, whatever. But don't waste time once you've figured it out. I watch all these older people just waiting for life to happen, and it used to confuse the shit out of me about my life. Is life just waiting? Waiting for a lover to pop up, waiting to take that trip, waiting for your dream job to pop up, waiting for money, waiting for your mind to click on something. All this waiting has produced very bitter adults. People who say they are going to do blank, but never accomplish it for one reason or another. Life is nuanced, I know, but waiting for your life to start is fruitless. If you love it, work for it. If you found the thing that lights a fire in your belly, you're blessed. Don't waste it. Honestly, your tastes and desires change over time, especially as you gain more personal experience and exposure with life. So if your career path is going to change, don't feel you have to stay on that path because you chose it. Life isn't static, you needn't be either. Short of it, don't become closed-minded. Point that being said, discipline to do all the things you absolutely don't want to do will pay off better than any school or business knowledge. If you have it ingrained in you, you can accomplish whatever that dynamic heart and mind may desire. Carry that ability and see through the effects of things to its core cause, and you can own and dismantle the issues that will arise. Point life isn't about money, status, fame. If you want those things, fine, but it should be approached as those are the effects of a solid cause. What it should be about is, when you decide on something you really want to achieve, you'll have the self-esteem and self-confidence to do it. Life throws curves all time, and you'll end up on the ground, but that doesn't matter. How quickly you get up and take it back on does. Best wishes to you. Point at it. Biggest mistake is not having the discipline to take on life. It gets harder to unlearn bad habits and then learn new ones as you age. Modern 20s. I won't go too deep or profound here. You don't need the newest gadget. Your iPhone/Galaxy 6 will do everything the iPhone/Galaxy 8 does. You're not a photographer or film director, so you don't need whatever neat but meaningless feature they have to justify being a new model. Your 1080p TV is fine. You don't need a PS4 Pro/Spark 6 when you have a base model. Your car is fine. etc. Point take the money you would have spent on the new phone, laptop, game console, etc. and save it or spend it on something you'll have in 10 years. The deal you make is to go without the newest stuff for one iteration/generation. Doing this, you'll begin to constantly get that new thing when it's half the price and you're only 6 to 8 months behind everyone. You save money either way. Point this goes quadruple for any kids you may have. A 5-year-old doesn't need a brand new tablet when a used $40 tablet will do. When they're 10 they don't need a brand new anything that's electronic/gadget-ish. Let those with the money or desire to eat untold debt be ahead of the curve. Avoiding work. I've seen so many 20-somethings that are barely employed, or not employed at all, because they are chasing something, or because they like the freedom of little work. Don't get me wrong, I'll take all the free time I can too. But you gotta be realistic about what's going to happen the moment you actually start searching for work. I know a ton of employers, and here's what they'll think 99 out of 100 times when they see 20-somethings with little to no work on their resume. Why should we hire you when you have nothing to show for? Does this candidate actually need to work? Will he suddenly drop everything and leave when he's tired? Are they hiding something? Getting fired? Are they afraid of work? Lazy? Basically, get work experience. It doesn't matter what it is. Your 20s will fly by you, and when the day comes that you want to start a career, having no work experience will put you last just about everywhere. Doesn't matter if you have a 4.0 GPA from the best schools, most employers are going to assume that you're a very risky hire and not worth the hassle. One exception would be some huge financial crisis or market burst where you can hide in the masses of unemployed people, and if you're not working, do something that's meaningful and that you can show for. Just don't sit on your ass waiting for something to happen. A week turns into months, months turn into years, and suddenly you're 29, wondering where all the years went. Not doing something. Literally anything. I'm in my late 20s, and I think about the responsibilities I have now, and how they prevent me from doing something. Then I remember I thought that when I was 18. Then I remember I thought that when I was 13. It just never ends. You're not going to find yourself magically having the time to pursue things you want to do or should do. Should is the worst word in any self-conversation. I should exercise more. I should eat better. I should have gone to that party. I should have drank more water last night. Should is the voice of regret. Should is a motivation killer. Should is a motivation vacuum. The takeaway here is do. Do something. Do anything. There's something amazing around the corner if you just do. Maybe you'll learn you never liked metalwork in the first place and were just attracted to it because forges are cool, and you spent a chunk of childhood dreaming about medieval stuff, sword fighting with your friends. But if you spend all the time wondering and not doing, you'll never end up with a bastard sword above your mantle. But you will have nagging thoughts of what could have been if you had just spent the time to find out. I'm in my early 20s, but I can already tell some stuff that I've witnessed will royally fuck up someone's life for the far future. Have insurance. I know someone who got into a crash that totaled his and the person's car. He had one of those $10 a month insurance plans and he now owes thousands. Don't drink every night. You're in college and it's fine to have a beer or two, but don't drink whenever possible. I also know someone who is on a straight path to alcoholism. Save money. You may have a shit job, but $10 a week towards savings adds up extremely fast. I once saved my own, as after I pulled a muscle and couldn't work for a week. That $300 I had saved up helped me so much by just being able to rest a day and not be financially crippled. And finally, family is there to help. Most of us have family that would be willing to help in some way, whether it be giving you some gas money or even letting you use their washing machine. Just remember that people are willing to help. Not taking career chances. Mistakes are forgiven when you're young and new. Take advantage of taking on projects a little outside your comfort zone. Use this time to work overtime or take a fun second job, and that money goes towards savings/retirement. Smartest thing I ever did was use my single 20s to work as much as possible. You're young, you have the energy to work 10 hours and still enjoy a drink out with friends. Look into opportunities where you can travel. My cousin is a respiratory therapist. She traveled around the country to hospitals low on staff and was paid for housing and per diem, so no living expenses. My other cousin traveled as a lineman. My brother went to Vegas to help build a hotel. Look into it, you would be surprised how many opportunities there are. I traveled for my job and managed to save $60,000 in 3 years just because I had no expenses. I technically lived with my parents, but was only home 1 weekend a month. My company paid for my hotels, food, laundry, even my car. Don't let college discourage you from further education. I was burnt out from college and never thought I would go back. I got my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and I really didn't enjoy it at all. I was laid off after a couple of years at my first job, and had a breakdown. I didn't have any skills I was confident in, and I no longer had any passion for the field I studied. I haven't gone back to college, but I'm in an online class that's really helping me get more confidence and skills. If you aren't where you want to be, research and make a plan to get there. You can learn so much online. Another step to success was addressing my depression and anxiety. I was accepting my situation as normal, which was easy to do, because everyone in my family felt similarly, and we are tight-knit. You'll have to do some work to get things going, but you'll be surprised by how helpful and supportive people are. For one thing, not to take relationships for granted. As in, have a false sense of reality vs expectation. Now that I'm in my 30s, I'm finally appreciating and loving my wife for who she is, and not what I expected her to be. I'm still working on it, though. Point for another, even when you have your life and goals all planned out, and ready to be implemented, be ready to have all of that changed. The things that you once believed in will either be proven false, your perspective changed, or solidified. This goes for faith, worldview, or anything else in between. Third, and one that I've had to really learn, your self-worth isn't found by how much you make, or how much you've accomplished. Those things certainly do give you a great sense of pride. Your self-worth is found in who you are as a person, and how you can be at peace with yourself, and with the world. It seems like an odd abstract concept, but it's one that I realize is very much necessary to have from your 20s, and throughout your life. You will hit moments and stages wondering if you have ever done enough, accomplished enough, or hold value in another's eyes. What really matters is the value that you hold for yourself. Everything else should be an extension of that. Screwing up a great job opportunity. I have a great job and I've seen several people, including myself, make career-limiting mistakes due to immaturity or inexperience. Luckily, the people that witnessed the mistakes weren't management and everyone could just laugh it off. You're allowed to have fun, but risking your career over something small is idiotic. Mine wouldn't have gotten me fired, but it taught me a lesson on being an adult. I was in a training class and the woman running the class was diagramming, but it ended up looking indisputably like boobs. I made a comment to a friend in the class. She heard me being disruptive and asked what was worth interrupting the class. I honestly answered. She rolled her eyes and I sheepishly finished the class. I couldn't help the chuckling, but now, 50 years later, I'd just excuse myself and have the giggles in the hallway alone. I've seen some pretty impressive drunk performances at conferences. If the employee is well liked, it can be laughed at, but if not, it creates a great opportunity to find a cause for firing. Live within your means and know what you're spending and what you're spending it on. Getting a budget program like Inab was a game changer and allowed me to go from years of making payments to being able to pay things off and not having any outstanding debt other than a house and a car. Don't play the gossip game. It's toxic. Remove those people from your life if possible, and if not, then minimize them from your life. Having friends like that isn't worth what it can do to your head. Same for the drama queens and moochers. Don't keep up with the Geneses. It's not worth it. It's a bad mindset to have, and it'll end up eating up your time and resources. You don't need everything the neighbors might have. You also don't need to try to live the life you see others living on Instagram. Unless you're a trust fund baby, you'll just end up older and broke. Not only that, but those people try to make it look better than it is. They don't show the pictures of how 29 of the 30 porta potties at that festival had mounds of crap so high they stuck out of the toilet seat. Don't have kids until you realize what it actually means. It isn't just a matter of having the money to take care of them too. You need to be emotionally ready to take care of them. Are you ready to deal with all the ups and downs? Are you ready to sit through a couple hours of some of the worst banged out symphony music you've ever heard? Are you ready to tell a 5-year-old that not everyone can win all the time and that not everyone will always make the team? Don't get that fast car until later in life, unless you can really afford it. The expenses are enough to think about, but what about your heavy foot? Watch the news to see what happens in a high-speed accident. Wait until you're older and more disciplined, and can enjoy it with low insurance rates. Don't drink/drug and drive either. Yes, MJ counts. You're still impaired. Every job has its issues. Choose your battles, and try to decide if the issues are petty, or if they really are worth leaving over. Job hopping may not look as bad as it used to in some circumstances, but too many lateral moves look bad and companies don't want to invest in someone that may not be around tomorrow. Go to college/secondary school for something the job market will be looking for in 4 to 5 years and beyond. If you get a job and it teaches you more than school, then consider not finishing. Another 20k in financing may not be worth it depending on your field. Sometimes if you can get enough years of experience under your belt, it's good enough. Read and understand legal contracts you sign. Companies don't care if you don't. They'll still catch you on the fine print and make you pay. Learn your rights, vote. It's your future. Don't let the old farts on their way out the door sell your future out from under you. 20 years old, I'm relaying my story of listening to those who have made mistakes, became an alcoholic at 17 over 18, stopped working out and eating right after a series of concussions. I played high-level hockey, they weren't from drinking, maximumed out a credit card, dropped out of college because I wasn't there for the right reasons. Totaled a beautiful GTI, and so very nearly caught a DUI, or died in that event. Then I spent nearly a year in sober living truly listening to guys talking about all the mistakes they've made. Proud to say I'm starting to really listen to their advice, the same stuff my parents and grandparents had been telling me for years. I'm working an awesome job now, and saving as much as I can for when I eventually go back to finish my degree, and for what will come after that. I paid off my debt and closed my CC account. I have written out my life goals and the steps I plan to take to get there. Life isn't all peaches now, but it's a whole lot better now that I listen to those who have lived through it. Take a step back and look at the big picture. If you cannot do that, best of luck until you can. Tattoos are awesome. The tide is slowly changing on people's perception of them and those that have them, but we are not there yet. Lots of older and super judgmental people hold positions of power at companies. I would highly recommend not getting one visible above a shirt's neckline when you're young. Honestly, any tattoos you can't easily cover for work is going to make you be discriminated against, but face, neck and hand tattoos get extra negative judgment. You're not only limiting yourself now, but setting back your future self. So think real long term on tattoo location. I hate to say it, but especially women who plan to have kids. More than your belly will enlarge, stretch and then likely be looser than it was pre-pregnancy. Places like thighs, upper arms, breasts are very prone to significant change with weight fluctuations. I see lots of people I know who got tattoos when we were young. Most of them looked like total shit. They got them in bad locations and they are all distorted, plus they are fading and blurring. Also, most of them were not great work to start with. Cover up tattoos are possible, but keep these facts in mind. Not every artist will do them. The cover up will have to be significantly larger. Your options as far as design and color are limited as well. Don't get some cheap work done by someone you don't know jack about. Do your research and find a good artist. Have conversations with them about what you want, what they can do, about how much it will cost, and save up for it. Some may even charge art or consultation fees just to do this. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Their time is money. Their custom art, even just working up some ideas, is money. So don't be surprised by this. That $60 thing you picked off the wall and had scribbled on your thigh by some random person is going to look like shit now. And even worse 10 years plus 20 pounds later. PS. Big earplugs and other loud piercings are also going to have the same effect. You will be discriminated against. Bitch about it all you want, but face the facts and accept the consequences of your decisions. Financing a 10-year-old BMW is a terrible idea. Credit cards shouldn't be used for anything but emergencies. Otherwise, use only what's in your spending account and pay it off monthly. Try to avoid going over 70% of limit. Wear a faking condom, because the 10 minutes of shitty sex isn't worth an STD, or marrying someone you hate, and a kid then getting a faking divorce, and saying goodbye to half your paycheck. Not setting themselves up for a savings or retirement plan. Seriously, so many clients who are never going to retire because they thought the equivalent of that 10-year-old BMW was a solid idea in their 20s. One bad credit or financial decision haunts you for a very long time. A good chunk of people I have met through my friend circle have no problems texting and driving or drinking then driving. Don't. You fuck. Then there's the mistake I'm personally possibly making, and that's not living life a little. Everyone I talk to that's older seems to talk about regrets and how they regret not doing things. I used to have so many dreams and wanted to do so much, and somehow 3 years later I'm still at the bank advising people why they are broke as beaches. Like I don't know. Everyone seems to yell in your face, don't faking chase a career, don't live with regret. And man, it's scary because as I progress down my career path the time frame of me being allowed to do things disappears. But then if I go do that shit I come back, where the fuck do I start? From ground zero again. Assuming that because you have a good job, you don't need to continue to develop your skills. I got into tech support in the mid-90s when it still required computer knowledge and problem solving skills. I was good. I lucked into an easy job and just stayed there. People told me I should get some accreditations, but I was making around $70,000 a year in the late 90s, equal to around $110k in 2018 dollars, and didn't see the point. Then the dot-com crash happened. The company I worked for got bought out by a Japanese telephone company, and the tech support business became increasingly script driven. You didn't need to know how the computer worked and figure out how to solve problems. You just followed a flowchart that told you what you needed to do next, and occasionally consult a higher level tech when problems fell out of the range of what was covered by the script. And that guy only got the job if he had some kind of paper showing he'd studied and had been tested on it. When I left tech support around 2005, it was call center drone work that paid $10 an hour. I started doing non-tech related customer service work. My 10 years of experience talking to customers on the phone was worth more than my tech support skills. My friends who got certificates and stayed in tech related work are now all project managers and consultants and make way more than me. My best paying job since then was only $37k a year, roughly equivalent to what I made in '95 when I first started doing tech support, if you account for inflation. Not getting their foot in the door with their career path early. We are living in a world with the most faceless yet competitive hiring process. I'm 23 and about to graduate college with my bachelor's. I've been fortunate enough to have had an internship with a government agency for the past year, but sadly no job will come of it for now due to a freeze on hiring. For the past 6 months I have done nothing but apply for jobs. It's become a part-time job for me. I received a few emails that weren't bots replying after I applied, and I landed a couple interviews. I fortunately have a job for when I graduate, but that is only because my brother, who has a high position within a certain city, thankfully put in a good word for me. It's not my ideal job, but hey, it's experience that I need and steady pay. Even when you are a freshman, make contacts, develop professional relationships with people in your potential market, and apply for internships. Stay off antidepressants if possible. Antidepressants are oversubscribed. You're supposed to feel sad, especially in your 20s. Without sadness it's difficult to fully appreciate happiness. Obviously some people need antidepressants, but a lot of people who take them don't actually need them. Just be cautious, look inside yourself to find the root cause of your problems, and try to overcome them on your own, or by speaking to someone. But don't try to brush your problems under the rug, and forget about them by using drugs. Drugs can be fun in moderation, but using them to drown out your sorrow, or to avoid having to face your issues, isn't a good idea. Your 20s are a learning curve. At times they can be harrowing. At times they can be revelatory. Don't be afraid to make mistakes in the pursuit of self-betterment. If you make a mistake, which you definitely will, make sure you learn from it and grow from it. Good luck. Sticking with something because it's comfortable or easy, that boy/girl you're with, but not crazy in love with. Let go. You're going to waste years of your life you can never get back. The terrible job you have with good co-workers and is easy for a decent wage. I mean, if it's the best you can do, sure, I get it. Don't rustle feathers without moving up. But if you're working in tier 1 tech support, but you know you can do better, do better. Don't stagnate because it's familiar. Don't have children in your 20s. You get one life to live, and while babies are great, and raising them can be its own joy, you're essentially going to be missing out on so much of your young years taking care of kids, letting yourself get fat/out of shape. Once you lose it, getting back into shape is a real beach. While you're still young, it's so much easier. Make sure you're doing something every other week at least. Go for a hike, a walk, lift some weights. I literally don't care what workout you do, except CrossFit. Don't fuck your joints up, just stay moving somehow. When you're older, not only will your motivation be lower than ever, but your body will actively hurt. I know I'm a little late to this thread. I'm in my 20s, and something I've noticed amongst the newer generation is that a lot of my friends don't realize their individual capabilities. There's this stereotype that 20-year-olds think they are special, even though they are one in an ever-growing 7 billion. I'm not saying that isn't true. It is, however. There's this newer generation that is growing that thinks that to be special they have to fit a certain mold. Most people my age chase what they think a special person would do, meanwhile hating themselves because they may not like or desire that lifestyle. People end up in debt, in a relationship that was too long, with no healthy eating/exercising habits, no sense of how to clean up after themselves, because they mimic the lifestyle special people they look up to, that is similarly aged celebrities/YouTubers. They don't realize that special people recognized their unique talents and worked with them. There are a lot less people thinking they are special and more doing what a special person would do, so they can become special. Meanwhile, they aren't developing their interests, ignoring potential hobbies, have no niche interests that they are passionate about, and when they start to get older they begin to get confused. Why haven't I been successful yet? They've done all the right steps, but not the right steps for them. It's hard to watch. I wish my friends would stop being angry with themselves for not being their ideal of special, and look inward to realize their strengths, the things that actually may make them special. It's actually kind of ironic. Point at it. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong. I'm in my 20s, and we do make misjudgments, as accurately illustrated in this thread. I'm turning 30 in a few months. Well, my mistakes are expecting life. To be fair, I expected justice to come to me as a victim of bullying. I learned recently that it doesn't exist. Karma is only in cartoons, not in reality, and bullies stay the same their entire lives. Suffering doesn't magically end when adulthood begins. Suffering just is. On that note, watching too many cartoons/anime/games, I crapped away an entire decade of my life this way. I hated people and the outside world too much. I had too many mental illnesses. I was too scared. How much easier my life could have been if I had stopped dissociation and agoraphobia instead of adopting it as a lifestyle, believing my parents, trusting authority figures they did not have my best interest. They lied non-stop. They forbade me from getting a job, having a car, having possessions, moving out, taking psych meds. They told me how to dress, what career to have. I obeyed their every whim until I was 27. So much of my life was wasted. So many skills are unlearned. They told me I was supposed to take care of them as my life's purpose. I wasn't living. I was existing and waiting to die. I'd have told myself to run away from home at 18. Sure, I'd be surviving on a minimum wage job and living on my own in an alien world, but it's better to do that at 18 than 28. Not untangling all the knots your imperfect parents created while raising you less than perfectly. Your 20s are all about becoming your own person. A good part of that is realizing, oh, I have boundary issues because my mom always needed to know where I was constantly, or oh, I pick on my significant other because that's how my parents treated each other growing up. The way I look at it, you've got 10 years to wake up to as much of that shit as possible and take ownership of it. Anything you haven't managed to take responsibility for by the time you're 30, chances are you're probably never going to change. It's either ingrained too deeply, or you're too set in your ways. Sure, everyone is capable of growth their entire lives, but I think your 20s is a Goldilocks time period, where you're old enough to realize you're a dipshit, but young enough that you still have plenty of time to figure your shit out, fuck up royally a few times, and still stick the landing. Theft or drug convictions. Drug convictions can be used to preclude you from financial aid, education, and various public assistance programs such as housing and food stamps. If you've committed a drug crime, the federal government is apt to turn its back on you. Point regarding theft, it destroys your credibility with employers. There's a law that a potential employer can't discriminate based on criminal background unless it's a conviction which could be relevant to the nature of work you'd be doing. Theft in your legal history is always relevant because as an employee you're always in a position to steal from an employer. Time theft, at the minimum, if you've been convicted of both felony theft and drug offenses, you'd better be cool with a shitty job, be a celebrity, have some kind of spectacular artistic skill, or not give a shit about the American dream, because you're in a situation where the system is stacked heavily against you. In my 20s I dropped out of college, almost married the wrong woman, did too many drugs, got drunk a lot, and wasted almost all of those years screwing around and thinking tomorrow I can always change. Well, tomorrow will hit when I'm 25. I realized I was about to marry a woman I wasn't in love with, called off the wedding a month before the date, and spent 2 years depressed about it. Not because I made a mistake, but because I wasted so much of her and my time by not sacking up and calling it off earlier before I even asked her to marry me. I jumped around from job to job in my 20s, not looking ahead to the future and just wanting the next paycheck to cover my nights out of partying. At 26 I went back to college to finally study something I'm passionate about, web development. I graduated at 28, met the right girl, haven't asked her to marry me yet, but I will, got a stable job as a PHP developer, and am finally happy with my life at 31. The only advice I can give is live it up in your 20s, but just in moderation. Spend your early 20s searching for something you'd want to do for the rest of your life, job, skill, trade, and hone it. I just wish I would have found and practiced this passion earlier on in my life. Don't worry if you drop out of college, just make sure if you go back it's for something you really want to learn. Most importantly, if you screw up, don't dwell on it. Easier said than done, I know. Just realize we all make mistakes. As long as that mistake doesn't kill you, learn from it, and use it to grow. Spending all of your income on meaningless hobbies that you'll eventually drop, rather than saving or investing the money. The solution to that is to make investments and save one of your hobbies. But I grew up poor, and for the first few years of having a full-time job I bought all the things that kid me could never have. RC gadgets, gaming console /PCs, a fancy phone, new laptop, a watch, nice shoes, etc. I literally had never been overseas before the age of 22, so I went on holidays overseas too, and that turned out to be pretty damn expensive. And I wouldn't say don't do this stuff, because I'm really glad I did do it all. But now that I'm older and have a bit more perspective, I would choose these things more carefully, and thinking about how much was spent I'm like fuck me, I should have been more careful with my savings. Cause that could almost amount to a house deposit these days. Don't seek instant gratification. Biggest source of it is social media. It unnecessarily pressurizes you to look good for a moment, yet that trait starts affecting you in the long run. Don't just go to the gym to impress your crush. Look for long-term health benefits. Don't make friends to score something or look to be popular. Build long-lasting friendships. Those help through tough times. Build a beautiful, trustworthy relationship with your parents for long-lasting emotional support, and not financial one only. When you start working, don't be obsessed with impressing your boss or colleague by breaking your back. Do it to create value for yourself and your company. Don't be an expert in small talks. Have meaningful conversations. Don't fuss about your looks. You're good the way you are. Really. Read books. Not for entertainment, but to learn something that will enlighten you. Spend some time with your mind alone. Meditate. Even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. Don't cry if you are weak or you lack willpower. It is the underlying issue. Talk to parents about it. They will help you recognize it faster and better than your friends. Thinking that because you're technically an adult, you know what you like and what you don't like, your big learning phase is over. Learning is like exercise, in that both can drastically improve your life/style. Socrates and Einstein both said something like the smartest people admit to knowing nothing. They had mad groupies during life, and a lot of people still think they're the shit. The whole Socratic method is basically tag teaming on 20 questions. Einstein wasn't ever really down with formal intellectuals or education. Schools depend on money, they're a business. The real nugget of wisdom here, for me, is to be humble when you approach people, ideas, and experiences. Not making judgments about people is the best way to develop empathy. Everyone can teach you something new about yourself and the world we live in. In my experience, the more I've worked on this, the better my relationships with others have gotten. I've been in grad school for a minute and got the opportunity to do some teaching. People have different approaches, and I'm not saying mine is better than any other, but I've learned more from my students than my professors. I would usually spend the beginning of weekly classes just asking people questions about what they were excited about. By the end of the semester, everyone would be participating, and class discussion was great. TLDR, Jon Snow knows nothing, and that's why everyone likes him. Perhaps getting the wrong diploma or degree. I personally can't tell the difference between hobby and career, what I like, and what I could do in a job. Having graduated with a multimedia game design diploma in Singapore, generally I liked the course and managed to gain insights into better skill sets like 3D modeling. Sad truth in my opinion is, unfortunately, I was being told the supply of multimedia designers also exceeds the job demand for them. Only the very few best could survive, and probably the established people with many years of experience in multimedia. It is very difficult to find a job relevant to my diploma in my country. Business diploma perhaps, if I could start again. These kinds of evergreen educational courses could have probably been more useful for career. Even with high qualifications, I might have to take on a lowly blue collar job for the rest of my life to survive. That is, if I was able to get one. Presuming they can trust someone when they're alone with them. A lot of people say things that they don't mean to stick to later on. Sometimes they have bad malicious reasons for this, and sometimes they have completely noble and legitimate reasons for this, justified by their sense of their own safety. Regardless of the reasons, people will lie to you in your life. Be careful what situations you get into, and life is always better with an open door and some witnesses, especially in schools and in the workplace. Until someone has really proven themselves worth trusting and being consistent on separate days and separate interactions in their general shtick, both in how they comport themselves and in any topics that they could either be consistent on or inconsistent on, such as wanting to bang, thinking you're cool, wanting to do you a favor or hang out with you, wanting to cover a shift for you, etc., and all of the above. So yeah. Don't go into solitary situations with people you barely know or who have demonstrated that they are not trustworthy. Buying brand new fancy cars. Cars are one of the most overpriced things you can buy. Then, people get roped into the idea of having a new car and get stuck in a loop of rolling leftover payments into new loans, raising the monthly payments of the new car. When it's all said and done, you bought something for double what it's worth paid off, and you really don't get much out of it. For a fraction of the price you can buy a modest used car and pay the same payment you would have paid for the fancy car to have the cheaper car paid off quickly. Once paid off, keep paying the same price into savings. When your car breaks down, you'll have plenty of money to fix it, and eventually you'll have so much excess that you can put it toward other responsible purchases, like paying off college debt. This cycle will help set you up in the long haul. My wife and I now own a nice home and drive luxury vehicles that are paid off. We're in our 30s. In your 20s, seeing time and life as infinite and lasting forever. It's not. It disappears fast. You will see it as time passes. Taking on debt. Not thinking of freedom. Working for yourself. A money producing job career sooner. Not starting on life goals sooner. And letting life's distractions get in the way. Not getting out of a wrong major sooner. Letting people's words and actions influence you. Spending time in places you don't like. Job, cubicle, home, or where you stay. Spending too much time with friends and relationships that aren't working, or you don't like, or they don't like you. Not moving on faster, or getting out of the situation faster. buying too much and accumulating clutter, not thinking of marriage and a family sooner, not thinking of the big ticket items in life sooner, and working on it sooner, goals, career, family, etc. Not realizing whatever big thing you want to happen, you have to start now, because it will take 1 to 20 plus years to get there. Succumbing to illness, not cleaning and organizing. That investment and money can take time. Not making decisions fast enough, mulling over things for a long time, procrastinating, being scared. All that time you spent being scared, being angry, staying in the same crappy place, job, relationship, all that time which can become years, watching TV, playing video games, surfing the net, doing things, spending time on things that don't matter. This past year a handful of older people I know have died or will die, and a handful of my favorite celebrities have died young, 20s to 50s. It was a trip to see a good friend in a coffin. I've been to more than one funeral this year. I'm 20 but I'm pretty mature for my age. That isn't to say I don't have a lot more life to live and insight to make. I'm settled in my current career making 55k/year, live on my own. So I've got the foundational bit of adulthood down point, and that's one of my biggest suggestions. Get yourself to a comfortable spot before you start to head out and experience things. This means not having children too early, getting a well-paying job and preferably a job you're happy in, if possible, and essentially getting your sheet together and then delving into all of your experiences, and when you have these experiences, trying to learn from them and become more aware of your relativity to everything that's around you. Live your life to its fullest extent and never stop doing that. Your life doesn't end when you hit 30, 40, or 50. You make the most of your life and have a balance between working and actually living. Alan Watts said it best, we tend to always be trying to pass the next milestone in life, and we waste the time we have trying to build up a savings, so that when we are old we have a whole lot of money, and not enough energy, to do anything with it. You have the energy now to do everything. Go do it. Don't let anything hold you back. Edit. Missed word. Getting too caught up in friends, of which most are probably only really acquaintances, as life goes on, and you start having families, or relocating for more career/professional opportunities, you start figure out the differences. My other thought was getting too caught up in scenes or other identity intensive cultures or even outlooks. It's human nature to want identity, and much of the time the ego will want to establish uniqueness by isolating its identity from greater society, while also establishing togetherness by identifying with a specific culture or subculture. We want to feel some uniqueness in our identity without abandoning her/pack/hive mentality. The most obvious examples of this are in counterculture such as the punk scene or goth scene, both being separatist countercultures that oddly enough ended up with their own internal popular culture and even uniform-like images. Another huge one is the new age spiritual/drug culture, who usually see themselves as separate from the flock yet tend to have surprisingly similar views, values, and generate similar edgy theories on things. Even if I could go back in time and tell 20y.0 me how much of a waste of time scenes are, I know 20y.0 me wouldn't listen. We love to be divided up into groups. We crave identity, to be this or that, yet we also crave a sense of belonging. It's such a big part of human existence that for centuries our leaders have used it to control us. Nationalism, religion, race, caste, or class, even which console, Apple or Android, gun control vs gun rights. I wish I had actually done something with myself in high school instead of just playing video games. I even went to college, but got nowhere, and racked up $36k in debt, just for an associate's degree in business. Then I got a job in an office, and realized I was miserable in that kind of setting, just staring at a computer all day, so I quit. Now I work at the deli in a grocery store for minimum wage, and live with my mother, while my loan builds interest, and I can't afford to make payments on it. I don't have any skills, practical or fun, and I have no friends. I don't even have the discipline to make myself learn new hobbies, and my mental health has sheet anxiety, OCD, PTSD, etc. I also faked up my brain with drugs and alcohol, so I have the intelligence and memory of a goldfish. At this point the only value I provide myself or anyone else is an example of exactly what you should not be doing with your life. I'm a fucking loser and I don't see any way to salvage my life. When I ask people for advice, nobody seems to have any advice. One day soon I'll probably just end up killing myself after blowing what little savings I have on airfare and a high-end hooker, because God knows nobody wants to fuck me because I'm such a depressing pity party. I don't know what I'm hoping for by typing this out. I should probably just delete it and not bother anyone. Nobody gives a fuck about me or my problems because everyone already has enough on their plate. I'm just being selfish and wasting people's time. Well, haha, jokes on you for reading all this. I bet my psychiatrist is sick of me too. He's always talking about how I don't have it so bad, but he's the one slaying bussy and driving a Camaro and has a fulfilling family and social life. Always telling me about his vacations and showing me pictures. Just faking rubbing it in my face, and I keep my mouth shut because I need him for the meds that make my panic attacks almost tolerable. I feel like I want to cry right now, but I think I lost the ability a long time ago. I post suicide memes on Facebook all the time and they've just been getting darker and darker. Between how badly I've faked up my life and my lack of a future, I just don't see any point in trying. My direction in life is completely up to the whims of the universe, unless I decide to take control and end this miserable existence. Because God knows I need some control in my life. Okay, I think I'm done now. Gonna troll people and beat off again before bed. Just watch this be too long to submit. Getting married too soon is a huge one. Ditto having a kid before you're settled. Not understanding that the world isn't going to ever bow to your whims and going out assuming that you'll get things just because you want them. Not understanding that nobody really cares if you don't feel good about the cause of the entity that's writing your paychecks, deciding that saving for retirement is something you'll worry about later. Because you're still young enough that you should be able to blow all your money on cover charges and lagers. You may think body art is a form of expression. Most people who will help you survive with money will view it as narcissistic idiocy. Skip the neck tattoos or the gauged ears, unless your life goal is to work at an edgy coffee shop as a barista. Treating relationships as transitive disposable items and not putting in the effort to nurture them. Close bonds now will yield enormous dividends later in life. Getting caught in echo chambers. You and almost everybody you know, because everybody you know is super progressive right now, and you all feel emboldened to tear down anyone who thinks differently than you do. There's an old French saying, if you aren't liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're still liberal at 40, you have no brain. I'm not saying go become a conservative. I'm saying be willing to listen to opposing viewpoints without viewing them as attacks, or to start feeling insecure and attempt to tear those viewpoints down. Because, odds are, when you transition to middle age and beyond, you're going to start looking at a lot of the world-changing views you held as a 21-year-old and wonder what the hell you were thinking, because you're now in a position to where you're the one who might be on the hook to have to pay for them. There was a graduation anthem in the 90s called Sunscreen. There was a line in there about living in New York, but leaving before it makes you hard, and then living in LA, but leaving before it makes you soft. This is fantastic advice, if not those two cities specifically. Live in a few different parts of the country to get an idea for the culture of them. You're super mobile in your 20s, that story is going to change dramatically when you're in your mid-30s and have a spouse and at least one kid and a mortgage. At that point, you're going to have one more real move in you before retirement. It's best to learn now what places are like, so you can make informed decisions later. Be the person who thinks 9 moves ahead. Everybody today reads a headline and reaches for their torches, or gets a piece of bad news and reacts viscerally without considering their endgame. Too many people are caught up in the now, in instant gratification. Those people almost universally have a lower arc. Always think of the long game. Train yourself now to consider every possible outcome to your actions. When you can make mistakes and it's easy to train yourself, and you'll go much further later on because you'll be out strategizing those around you. Learn personal responsibility. Government is not your friend and does not exist to make your life better. Government is a necessary bureaucratic evil in order to maintain a civilized society, and actually cares not one iota about you individually or collectively, for that matter. Being self-reliant means never being in a constant state of worry that forces out of your control are going to make decisions that benefit you, because that's always going to be a coin flip, and, half of the time, it's not going to go your way. Always insure your rental car and drive them like you stole them. Save room for dessert. Don't fall into the trap of thought that suggests the easiest way for you to succeed is to root for, encourage, or assist in someone else failing. Learn to properly debate. It doesn't matter about what. Just learn how to do it effectively in a way that is convincing to more than just your circle. You will spend more of your life than you know fighting for one thing or another, and I don't mean with regards to the government. Never let the credit industry get their claws into you. A mortgage is okay. A vehicle is okay. Even a reasonable sum of student loans you project you can pay back within 5 years is okay. All of those are going to be sub 7% loans, and many of them will provide tax benefits. If you can't afford to pay cash for something else, you can't afford it. 24% APR on a credit card is just dumb. And once they've got their hooks in you, it will take you years to crawl out, if at all. Keep it wrapped. If you're a guy, especially a guy with a high financial ceiling, don't get trapped. Don't trust the other person has an implant, or is on medication, or had a surgical procedure. Vices in general. I get it, that burger tastes so good, but adds like 5 pounds. That will take most of a week, if not more, to burn off, but the cost in money and time it represents is far more than the joy it brings. That's the thing I'm starting to realize only recently towards the end of my 20s. Sometimes it's better to be unhappy than have a brief flash of joy followed by greater unhappiness than you would have had otherwise. Also, not doing things costs more than doing things, because when you're not doing things, you end up spending on things to fill your time. Schedule yourself things to do, and you end up spending less on stuff, because you don't have the time to spend money on. What was my rapid fat gain money loss meal? Bag of crisps, sandwich, chocolate, energy drink. Fat and money are the bane of my life thanks to poor decisions earlier this decade, and I will destroy one and eventually swim in the other. Hopefully I get the right ones. Being afraid to quit their college/course that they signed up to, not because they wanted it, but because it was expected/required by family/told by someone else they should do it. I quit my bachelor just before finishing it. Had some issues going on, but it does not matter, and it was the best decision and I wish I had done it sooner. Just after that I realized how anxious and pressured I was by my surroundings to actually study and finish something I did not like in the first place. If you have something that you are talented in or want to do, you can either go and get education in that field or just put yourself out there. There are fields where a degree is necessary, doctors, architects, chemists, but there are also tons of jobs where the degree is useless and all that matters is your effort and actual ability at the skill and being good. Writers, marketing people, all sorts of creative jobs, cooks, open your own faking bistro, go and take care of animals, whatever it is. Hell, even half of the programmers in our company are just excited self-taught juniors who realize it's only up to them if they will learn how to code. The academic road is great for many people, but for many it is not. Do not dwell on it just because you think you have to. You don't. Not trying something because you are afraid of failure. Recovering from failure is much easier when you are younger and have less responsibilities, no spouse or kids. Here are personal examples from my 20s. I tried to get rich quick by trusting a friend to invest $10k for me. I lost it all. I invested money myself in my 401k after learning how the stock market works. My portfolio is now 6 figures strong and growing. I tried foreclosure real estate investing after paying $300 on a seminar. Didn't work out, but I bought my first house based on what I learned. It is worth 50% more than what I paid for it a few years ago. I tried running a business partnership with a college roommate. Earned $30k as a side hustle in one semester. Partner wanted me to quit school and my other part-time job to concentrate on hustle. Luckily, I said no, because the business fizzled out. My part-time job became my full-time successful career. I got the courage in my 20s to ask women out and had many rejections. I also had my heart broken on one. I now know what love is and married someone who loves me back. Get enough sleep and take care of your health. I stayed up late playing games a lot, and since I had a full-time job this meant I only got like maximum 6 hours sleep each night. Not getting enough sleep has a lot of negative effects on your health. For example, it can affect your memory, your chance of getting sick, death sick, etc. In addition, being tired 24/7 and literally having no energy meant I never had the motivation and energy to do a workout. When I was 18 I was super fit, 154 lbs/ 70 kilograms, played football, work out 5 to 6 times a week. When I was 24, after 4 years of gaming and little sleep I was 189 lbs/ 86 kilograms and had back problems because of bad body posture after too much sitting down. I managed to turn this around, and I'm now 26, getting enough sleep, a lot of energy to work out, no back problems, and I'm in general a much more happy/positive person. I don't have wife/kids yet, so I can understand that some people don't feel like they have time, but keeping your body in health should be your #2 concern, where #1 is taking care of your family. Burning bridges where work is concerned. It can be very tempting when you're fresh out of school to get cocky, and by you, I mean anyone, myself included at one point. You want to spread your wings and show everyone what you can do, but sometimes that can rub people the wrong way. If you're trying to build a career and reputation, word can travel fast. If you're difficult to work with, perceived to be arrogant, argumentative, a loose cannon, not a team player, etc. 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 It doesn't matter how talented you may be, sometimes sour grapes might cause an influential coworker, and you just never know who might have critical connections behind the scenes. Even someone you think might not be directly related to your work, like the office secretary, an assistant, or even an intern, might have a family member, friend or spouse who's a big shot, and if your behavior is horrid enough, that big shot will surely hear all about it, to badmouth you in an effort to get you blackballed in your field. You can still get out there and show 'em how it's done. Just keep your nose to the grindstone. Show a little humility and respect for your coworkers, bosses, managers, and build a reputation for being hardworking and bright. That way the right kind of news can travel around about you and open new doors. Putting a time limit on when you should be married and/or have kids. Especially women. I see women in their late 20s who make all the wrong decisions because they think they need to be married and have a baby on the way before their 30th birthday, because otherwise they will be considered an old shrew. Few marriages last when you rush to the altar without putting the time into the relationship. And/or get married because you're knocked up and it's the right thing to do. This isn't the 1950s anymore. Having a kid out of wedlock or in your 30s is more than acceptable, and the right thing to do is take care of the baby, however it works out. No one wants to be on their second divorce with 2 kids by their 28th birthday. I also hate those "if neither of us is married by 30 then we will get married" type of pacts. I have known 2 sets of idiots that actually did that, and both ended in divorce within a year. It was usually one person that cared for the other person who just settled and hated every minute of it. A lot of economic advice which is kinda cool, but ultimately gets you nowhere. In terms of true happiness, your 20s are the time when you figure out that the world is huge and needs help. It's when you figure out what true love means. No one, I repeat, no one sits on their deathbed thinking I should've made more money or I should've bought more cars. Those are the thoughts of middle-aged people beaten down by the system. This is the time you have to make a difference, to be whatever you want to be, to travel the world and give people hope. Go out and do something. Or save up for a car. Whatever. It's not my life. The biggest mistake you can make now is falling into the trap and getting the job and miserable life you will have until you die. Rise above and become the person the child version of you wanted. Do whatever you want. Yes, it really is that easy. People who are trapped will tell you it's not. So I've heard a lot here, but the thing I didn't see is anything around felonies. Granted, this isn't something a lot of people do, but I have seen people ruin their life because they got a stupid felony, armed robbery, and rap the 2 biggest ones. While I don't agree with the system that makes this so, the fact is that schools, jobs, etc. all will ask If you have any felonies on your record, and it's a lot harder to get a job, if your answer is yes. That all said, I think the reason this isn't high up is because not many people do this. Far more people screw up their lives for one of the following, already mentioned, reasons: relationships, dating/marrying/having a child with an abusive/immature/incompatible person. Money, getting too much debt, not saving enough, or not doing something to ensure good long-term earnings. Health, teeth, exercise, addiction, DUI/TWE, and skincare being the major ones. Complacency, not using your time well while you have it. I'll speak to the money side, not starting your retirement savings now. Social Security is being faked up by Washington DC and I'm 34, but I'm in the same boat as those of you in your 20s, will not be able to count on having it to live on once we retire. It sucks, and it's not fair, but you must take it on yourself to start saving for retirement now. It's easy to do. If your company offers a 401k, enroll and put in however much the company will match for, and more if you can. If your company does not offer a retirement plan, start your own with either an IRA or a Roth IRA. Traditional IRAs don't get taxed when the money goes in, but are taxed when it comes out. Roth IRAs are the other way around, and preferable in most, but not all, situations. Even if you can only throw $50 a month into a retirement fund, do it. And find the most low stress one you can. Many are called target accounts. They are managed by a financial company, based on when you're going to turn 65 and hypothetically retire. They start out nice and aggressive. Lots of the money you invest they put into international stocks and American stocks. Volatile sure, but they are not risking a lot of money. Your account is small, and you can take the lumps. As you get older, they automatically shift your money into more conservative places to protect what you've earned. I'm lucky in that I've been employed with the same company and had my 401k seeding since I was 23. Now at 34 I've already got 6 figures saved for retirement. I did not accomplish that by being rich. I'm doing well now, but was in the 30s and 40s for all of my 20s. My best friends, and yours, are time and compound interest. Sorry for the delay. It's 11 PM and I just got home. I have a decent job, and the firm owner is a good friend. I have a lot of freedom and scheduling flexibility. But I also make half of what a first-year associate at a giant firm does. I also work until 11 PM sometimes. I've been out of law school for 15 years and still have 6-figure debt. And I'm one of the lucky ones, because I don't have to take clients I think are in the wrong, and I don't have to defend positions that I find deplorable. And that's not to say that money is the only issue. Those first-year associates I mentioned, the ones making 6 figures right out of school, they are probably working as many hours as I am, without any of the flexibility. And they will keep doing so, for years and years and years. Law is a noble profession, and can be a vocation. If someone truly loves it, they should do it. But the cost of law school and the difficulty in work-life balance makes it nearly impossible for it to be a viable career path in the modern era. Going to university. I'm sorry, I wanted more than anything to go and have the mystery of the universe unveiled to me. I really did, but the institution's in shambles. The inmates are running the asylum. I couldn't have imagined a more shocking lack of quality of education, the only thing I ever cared about anyway. So much so that it wouldn't surprise me if employers, tired of getting a bunch of applicants that appear to not know what they should, start requiring a master's degree or extra training to get the job. I worry about an inflation of a bachelor's degree, much like what happened to a high school degree. I feel it might soon get you nowhere other than food. On top of that, since less people are going, they are shamelessly squeezing what money they can out of us. More hoops and boundaries and fees every semester. It's too much money. It's too much debt, and to a private bank, because my parents made too much money to get federal loans. An authoritarian cancer, concerned only about diversity quotas and women and pronouns and hurt feelings, has rotted out the heart of it. Keep your mouth shut if you have a different opinion. Don't pay thousands just to have a lunatic teacher break your balls and knock your points to nothing the whole semester. People should worry deeply about competent caretakers of the future and innovation. in my experience, and I'm always desperately listening. Teaching the ability to critically think and adapt is rarely occurring. Go to trade school. Educate yourself. It's what I've been doing anyway. Save money and hope the bottom doesn't fall out. That's what I should've done. I'd be out if I wasn't so damn close to getting that meaningless piece of paper I wanted to be so proud of.